Welcome, AI community with no borders. And first and foremost, dear all, before I'm kicking off our cognitive virtual, I want to say a huge thank you to our awesome AI community. You guys are really incredible. We had 3 big challenges this time, and without you all, we wouldn't have been able to pull this event off today. So what were these 3 challenges? Let me share. First, finding representatives for the AI view from Antarctica. Second, 2 hours before the event started, finding a representative for Asia due to a speaker fallout for health reasons. And can you imagine, with this time difference, a real challenge? And third, also 2 hours before the event started, finding a representative for Africa, also due to a speaker fallout for health reasons. So first and foremost, get well very soon. And a massive thanks to Vandana Tolani for onboarding Tushar Kansal from Asia, and for Jacques Ludig for onboarding Pius Ila from Africa. You are incredible. Thanks a lot. And now let's dive into the 7 continents view on AI. We all know there is no one size fits all when it comes to anything in life. And that applies to cognitive technology as well. The reasons for the development and applications of AI differs across teams, organizations, industries, countries, and even continents. With the help of incredible AI experts and leaders from around the world, we are just about to feel the AI pulse of each continent from the North to the South Pole and see how these feeds into the global AI heartbeat. The agenda will be filled with some inspiring and thought-provoking keynotes, interviews, and panel discussions. Stay with us through, though, and don't miss the views on AI from the vantage points of all continents, including Antarctica. How cool is that? This is really a first-of-its-kind event. So, my dear audience with no borders, please use the chat for Q&A and connect with each other. Make some great posts on social media, and don't forget to mention the speakers and Swiss Cognitive in your post. Use the hashtag for Cognitive Virtual, as well as an AI community without borders. And now it's time that we dive into the agenda and see what AI offers from the vantage point of Europe. It is my great pleasure to interview Hannah, an incredible mind from our community whom we got connected to just recently. It's my great honor to introduce you to our global audience, Hannah. You are Global Head of Technology Innovation and Ecosystem at CTO Office at the London Stock Exchange Group. Hannah, you have been worked in a variety of business leadership positions regarding from innovation strategy to business development and sales. You have a keen interest in innovation, new technologies, and the fintech industry, and I see you have been living in 6 different countries in Europe and Asia and are now based in New York. Please, Hannah, tell us first about your role at the London Stock Exchange Group.
Sure, absolutely. I'm really interested in these sessions today. Very excited to be here as a speaker. So as I said, I work for LSEC. It's really a combination now of London Stock Exchange Group, so the typical exchange arm, as well as Refinitiv, which is the data business. So we have gone through a really interesting year by bringing these 2 businesses together. My responsibility is to lead the technology innovation and ecosystem team. So my group is very focused on 3 different angles. So what we do is that we look at the various different emerging technologies that are out there in the marketplace that can obviously benefit LSEC as well as directly our customers. So very much obviously looking at public cloud as well as AI and machine learning and obviously many other trends. What we also do is that we engage with different ecosystem players, whether they are the large technology providers or smaller startup companies. We also have kind of strategic engagement in the academic space. So we collaborate, for example, with the MIT IBM Watson AI Lab based in Boston, as well as Imperial College in London. So really trying to get that almost like a research angle going as well. And lastly, key part of this role as well is to really enable our technology organization to innovate more and obviously kind of continue learning more about these new emerging technologies.
Great, very interesting. So you're really bringing together actually from the business side to research and development in this whole ecosystem. So what kind of trends are you seeing?
There are lots of interesting trends. So what we have done as a company, so we have the almost like a habit to do now the AI and ML yearly survey. So we did the survey actually earlier this year. The results have been announced just earlier this week, and I will be obviously sharing with you the link for it. You will be able to find it under ELSEC Labs AI machine learning survey. So there will be all sorts of insights that you will learn from it. But what we did with that survey is that we interviewed about 500 of our customers in the financial services sector, obviously looking at banks, asset managers and hedge funds, and really wanted to learn from them that where they are going with AI and ML. And it was very positive to see the development from previous years that all of those organizations actually saw that AI and ML is very much part of their core strategy, and they continue investing in that space. About 50% of the organizations were saying that they haven't yet done full kind of like end-to-end AI ML advancement in their space, so there's more work to be done, but it was really interesting to see that. I think also from the use case perspective, we saw it very widely being used in those very data hungry teams, I would say in the operations, risk management, in the quant teams as well, and really kind of experimenting and making sure that those models are actually implemented to the kind of full-time workflow. So lots of exciting developments there.
Thanks a lot. I mean, if you just mentioned the 15%, mean that 15% do already actually working front to back. Is that true?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
I think, although it's a small number, I think it's really cool. I'm not so sure if we're looking at other industries, whether we are as far as you just mentioned. Now I would like now to raise awareness about how globalized our world is and what happens in one region, on one continent, or even in one industry impacts the rest of the world. So before we were coming on stage, we started a discussion about AI in Europe versus America and other continents. How do you see the development of AI in different regions and on different continents, and how independent or correlated development is, Hannah?
I think it's starting to be quite connected, to be honest. So what we again saw from this survey is that we interviewed people and organizations across all of the regions. I think we initially saw the trend that especially North America was a little bit ahead of other regions. However, what we now saw this year is that both Europe and especially Asia Pacific were, acknowledging the fact that, they will be using AI and ML across their organizations going forward. And again, like they very much saw it as a, part of their core processes and strategic direction going forward. What we also saw is that those statements were really backed by the actual investments in this space. So the organizations were really hiring, data scientists and subject matter experts in this area, and we're also spending a lot of money on the capabilities where they can also leverage AI and ML and take their organization really faster to the next level. So I do see that it is becoming much more kind of like jointly connected. It would be interesting to see what the other speakers later on today think about that as well.
Thanks a lot. And this just reminds me, we recently had the topic about how to set up a AI Center of Excellence. And as there is a huge request on this topic, I think it will be great to have you as a keynote or panelist while we're coming back to this topic next year. I'll be definitely reaching out to you. I think you have a lot of experience there. So what role is actually Europe playing in the global AI ecosystem?
I think there's a big opportunity for Europe to play in this space. I'm actually originally from Finland, so I can kind of talk about this as a European citizen as well in that sense. So having been in the US for a number of years, like I've seen that obviously you have the, the local technology ecosystem, obviously large tech firms, which have kind of like created this almost like a local ecosystem of, startup companies and talent here. I think Europe has very similar opportunity as well. We have seen really exciting, startup companies coming from the space. Also academia, I think there have been lots of interesting opportunities there where many of the universities are kind of like moving from the approach where they are looking at only research. They also enable their students and PhDs to also come up with new startup ideas and getting actually funding for them. So I think those are the definitely two key aspects. I think also from the environmental perspective, I think Europe is very much ahead of that discussion, obviously from the ESG angle more widely. And I think there's also an opportunity to really continue focusing on that. And again, like that is obviously something that needs continued focus there as well. Lots of opportunities.
Great, great. I would like to share with you some questions that came from the audience. And one is about, do you think UK would be leading the AI investment and policy making like the London Stock Exchange Group?
I think so. So I think we have seen obviously lots of momentum overall coming from London. And, I think from our perspective, we are obviously actively engaging with all sorts of different firms, also beyond obviously AI ML space. So we will be playing very active role in that space. And I think, again, like to highlight also like the recent changes and developments on our side with the whole LSEC brand, we have, I think, the momentum also, like we have with the exchange arm, but we have also lots of partnership opportunities in this space that will be collaborating with the market going forward.
Great, thanks a lot. Thank you, Hannah. I mean, that was really interesting. And honestly, before we met, I never really thought about, what is actually the stock exchange doing, but it's so evident that you're in the middle, especially looking at the ecosystem with all the different stakeholders that you have to interact. So I'm very much impressed, and I wish you a lot of success in the future, and I will be more than happy to have you with us on stage again. So thanks a lot for sharing the experience as well on a professional and also on a personal perspective. It was very insightful. And as I mentioned, see you soon on our stage. Dear audience, connect with Hannah, and if you have any further question to Hannah, reach out to her on LinkedIn. I'm sure Hannah will be more than happy. Okay, now...
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Now it's my great pleasure to go on with our next... with our next, I just lost my fil rouge. We will go on with our next panel, but before that, I would again like to ask you to share your experience in the chat when people have questions, get into a conversation, and also reach out to our panelists, to our keynote speakers, and interact with each other. This is the virtual networking that we can do and that we can enable and empower. So let's kick off our first panel that's gonna spotlight the perspective on AI in North America, Africa, Europe, and Australia. This panel will be led by our Swiss Cognitive Fellow, Ganesh. Ganesh, you are calling yourself a technologist, storyteller, and entrepreneur who's passionate about data and AI. You're fascinated by its power to augment the human experience. At the very early stage of your career, and as an educated engineer, you successfully founded and grew business units at Dell. You proceeded an even more entrepreneurial journey after that and were working early with Cognitive Scale, co-founding Molecular, and now works for Beyond Minds as their head of business development and partnerships. But you also have a show called Stories in AI, where you interview AI leaders around the world and capturing their stories to inspire actions in AI. Very cool. And dear AI thought leaders out there, reach out to Ganesh if you have something to share with the community. Now let's introduce your panelists, Ganesh. Amani, you are a computer software engineer from the Neil University. Today, you are the CTO of AI Pro program at the Information Technology Institute in Egypt, as well as the Minister of Communication and Information Technology, the voice of AI in Egypt. Amani, you are a self-motivated IT professional, non-stop learner with years of professional career experience in software development, testing, and quality assurance, training, delivery, and consulting, as well as creating content for online courses and currently in AI and ML. You trained and mentored over 1,000 faculty graduates on software development, testing, AI, and ML professions who joined ITI yearly in the different programs. You're always looking to take the ICT industry a step forward whenever there is a need for innovation solutions and programs. With you on stage, we have also Mauricio. Mauricio, you are a researcher focused about a near future encounter where AI robots will be interacting with humans harmoniously. You mentioned that these robots eventually become conscious and are able to take their own decisions. One question you're raising during your research is about, should they deserve to be legal persons? I'm sure based on your PhD research on this topic, you can show some alternatives to this debate. Glad to have you on our panel, Mauricio. Our third panelist is Anita. Anita, you are the founder of the first educational AI community in Serbia and the owner of Anadu AI. Anadu AI recognizes the areas where AI has greatest leverage for SMEs. You're on a mission to empower people to harness the potential of AI and have the appropriate education to do so, with a nice goal in mind to have more free time to pursue personal dreams. I absolutely agree with you. As a public speaker, mentor to startups at the Founder Institute, initiator of transnational AI collaborations, I'm sure you're familiar with the essence of the deep tech industry. And last but not least, we have Shri joining our panel. Shri, over the last 2 years at Experian, you were helping financial institutions to solve challenges and to drive impact with data, technology, and analytics. Before that, you are a partner at Oliver Wyman, where you co-founded Oliver Wyman Labs. These labs help clients to better use data, technology, and advanced analytics to drive transformative business impact. Shri is also an engineering and currently studying at Stanford University, focused on data science and analytics in flight control systems. I am very much looking forward to our conversation, Shri. Dear Ganesh, the virtual panel is yours. We can't hear you, Ganesh. Probably the most shared sentence in the last 2 years. Please unmute yourself. I can't hear you. Let's give it a try. Okay, my dear audience, we all know how it is, basic infrastructure problems. We just hit one of them. So the guys will restart the session. Stay tuned and wait another 1 or 2 minutes. We will get back with the panel here and see what they have to tell us. In the meantime, again, I would like to share with you a very nice anecdote and why you should actually use the chat to get introduced to each other. One of the last events I have been introduced to a person, and actually the person who did the bridge is Michael, who sits in Pennsylvania. They somehow got into a discussion and he said, hey, you need to get to know Dalit. I will do an intro email. And he did that. And you know what happened? When we were on the phone, we just figured out that we are living 7 kilometers from each other away. So that was a very nice thing. So even if you have the whole global AI community here, you never know to whom you're gonna pop into. The panel is back.
Andy,
I'm
you
happy.
hear us?
I'm
Okay.
happy to share
Hello.
the stage with Ganesh. Ganesh? Now it seems to be
Hello,
freezing.
everyone. How about now? Can the rest of the stage, rest of the world hear us? Anything on the chat? The stage is frozen for me as well. Should we just go ahead and act as if the panel is on and keep talking?
Hold on. Okay, was a nice try. We will come back again. Now, as you know, speaking is at least one of my core competences, so I will just go on and tell you some other stories while they're trying to get back. So at least we were able to see them, but we weren't able to hear them, but we weren't able to see them. I mean, one of the topics that we're going to discuss is about robots going to be harmonized with a human being, and actually the question about whether they should get the status of a real person.
Olivia, we can hear the stage right
Okay,
now.
they're back. So I'm really curious about how long it's going to take while we're still struggling with basic infrastructure. Ganesh, the virtual stage is yours.
There you go. Thank you, Dalit. And I hope everybody can hear me now. And I also realized, looking at the time, I have to start talking faster. So I am excited to chair this panel. It's a topic very near and dear to me because AI is one of those technologies that not only has this amazing, impactful the impact on humanity, but also is a team sport, right? Within an organization, across the world, in countries and stuff. And for humanity as a whole to win, by using this powerful technology, we need to all be working together across the globe. So I'm so excited to actually have this very esteemed panel here with me. And I'm going to start off the proceedings by asking one simple question to each of my guests and panelists here. And it's going to be more around an introduction to the state of AI in their particular journey, in their particular country or region. I'm going to start with you, Amani, and then kick us off.
Hi, Ganesh. Hi, dear audience. I'd like to thank you all for being with us today. And I'm really happy to share with those expertise, sharing insights and experiences about the domain of ML and AI. Thank you. Okay, if we can talk about an overview about how AI in Africa and Egypt, you know that AI and ML will dramatically change the face of the business in the coming years. And now it's on top of our priorities in Africa and Egypt. Let me talk about the first steps we have taken. And we have crafted our African Union for AI strategy in Africa involving Ethiopia, Cameroon, Uganda, Algeria, and Egypt. Seeking how we can work in different projects, and we'd like to connect with the whole world, seeking new challenges in AI and ML.
Awesome. Thank you, Amani. Anita, give us a view of the state of AI in Europe. You're on mute. You're on mute.
The most quoted sentence, of the last 2 years. So thank you. And I want to say this week is the week of internet being down. So thank you for everyone for having patience. Regarding the Europe, I can say that we are kind of in the middle of the race with the America and China region. But what we are doing the most is trying to pave the way for AI to be in service of humanity and not the other way around. So what I really appreciate is the policies that are introduced in April this year. So we're kind of trying to be the leader in policy making, but in the same time, find a balance how to support the development and research and innovation at the same time, and not, let's say, not lacking behind in that terms as well. So it is hard to find a balance, but I think it's really important to have the right policies and protect the humanity and people and create AI for good and not let's say for profit only. And it is really an important subject, as Stephen Hawking will say as well, that it will be our best invention or our last invention. So we need to do it properly. Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. And governance and policy around AI and any frontier technology is a very important topic. Would love to hear more about it in the session. Mauricio, coming from down under, right? From New Zealand, give us a view of what's happening in the ANZ landscape with AI, and give us a state of the market there.
Sure, Ganesh. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yes, aquí we are in the bottom of the world. We are trying to catch up with the other nations, but here we noticed that there are a huge investment from business, universities, governments to try to implement AI across all industries. So they're investing in new centers of knowledge. They are trying to build up capacity to connect industries, universities, professionals, because you notice that we have the help of Australia and the Five Eyes. So they're trying to get together and create an environment where AI can flourish and make it better use. Like Anita said, we're also very concerned about ethical uses of AI, how the algorithms are used. Are they transparent? Are they being used for good? And also we know that there are other people using for other bad intentions. So we try to make a new framework to accommodate all those challenges. We know it's not easy, so we are counting on other nations to make maybe a global framework where we can help each other in building a better society in this new era.
Thank you, Mauricio. Thank you. Sri, bring us home on a view of the landscape in North America.
Yeah, happy to. So North America in many ways has the benefit and the privilege of being at the cutting edge of a lot of the beachhead innovation, and there's always like cool things coming out. Like for instance, in these last couple of weeks, Tesla announced its full service drive capability, which is just some amazing AI. If you look at videos of what people are doing with that driverless AI, it's fascinating. And Amazon came up with an AI-driven robot, which is it's a bit like the old Hollywood movies coming to reality, where you have an assistant named Astro moving through your house. But at the most fundamental level, I think the biggest thing that's happening in North America, which is going to have a profound impact worldwide, is something a bit more mundane, which is actually the democratization of AI. I think our children and our grandchildren are going to view AI and the ability to harness AI as commonplace as we view electricity, the personal computer, or the internet. And that revolution is starting. Today, AI, as much as we talk about it, is still the dark art of the data scientist to the machine learning engineer, right? And we will be in a world where, like the everyday human, like when you talk to a business person today, you don't ask them, can you use a computer? You just assume that they know that that's part of their job. And I think that's the democratization that's starting is in a very significant way in North America.
That is amazing, Sri, and you're so right. I think we see a future very quickly, and it's probably going to start with North America because of the adoption curve and how most of the innovation has so far happened. But we can't ignore Asia and China, not too far behind, if you will, right? And I think we're looking into a future where AI just becomes so invisible that it's not a thing we talk about. It's just embedded and weaved into the fabric of life as we interact with systems and units, if you will. So let me get into some specific questions to each of the panelists, and feel free to actually add commentary, others as well. So Amani, let me start with you, right? And talk about, like, specifically on Egypt, right? How is Egypt as a country, and you've just gone through so many changes over the last decade, right? I mean, it's an entirely new country.
Yeah.
How is the government or the country actually looking at AI in a way to actually prepare people for the automated future or the AI future, the jobs of the future? Is there a specific strategy in education, enablement across the society, the fabric of the society, to make that transition smooth?
Yeah, in AI in Egypt, actually, we are belonging to the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, which adopt our AI strategy since 2019. Egyptian government formed the National Council for Artificial Intelligence as a partnership with governmental institutes, academics, practitioners, leading business in the field of AI. In 2020, Egypt has ranked 56 on the Government AI Readiness Index by Oxford Insight and IDRC, which is International Development Research Center. And this gives us a high rank of how we are ready to implement AI technologies. And this reflects more on our effort done by our ministry in this sphere. Actually, we are working currently in many initiatives in industry, engaging artificial intelligence and machine learning solutions in industry, in healthcare, in agriculture, in education. By providing, we have working in actually, let me speak about Egypt's AI strategy pillars. We have AI for governments, which aim to embed AI technologies into government process to increase efficiency and transparency. And the second pillar is for AI for development. We need to foster the use of AI in vital development sectors, in private sector, public sectors, local beneficiaries. And so this can help to scale up people to help Egypt in its development plan. As you know, we are currently changing a lot of in every dimensions. The third one, which is the most critical one for us, is the capacity building, and this is what I'm working for actually in my role. We are trying to to build our faculty graduates and empower them to learn about machine learning with different initiatives through after graduation and before graduation. We have many programs, and now currently you have a specialized program in Egypt for artificial intelligence and machine learning specialists called AI Pro, and we have preparing for like 400 faculty graduates and professionals to work in the field of machine learning and AI in many different domains, either in Egypt or outside Egypt. So we are trying extensively to focus on empowering people, and as well as engaging in many different international relations, promoting our graduates and our projects to get engaged with the other global world.
Got it. And education is a very important role to play. And initially in North America, it was all about, and even in Europe, it was about education through funding into research. Now it's also about building the workforce of the future who are going to be there. So it's actually interesting you say that. And in a country like Egypt, there's a lot of catching up to do since the last 10 years, right? It's amazing to see that. But, and let me ask the question to Anita, then what is, like, from Serbia's perspective, right? A small tech-savvy market in Europe. What is the role of smaller countries? We're very tech-savvy, tightly connected with the community, smaller communities. What is the role of these kind of markets in the global future for AI? How do you see that evolving?
Thank you, Manesh. As the country where the zero moment point theorem was founded by Professor Vukovratovic, Before that, robots could not walk stably, so they kind of improved the dynamics and everything related to stability of the robots. I think that when we speak about smaller countries, I think that there is more potential in quality than quantity. So with the researchers and the scientists and engineers that are leading the way in terms of innovation and development. So I think there is a huge untapped potential there. There's a lot of prejudges in terms of if you're not a big development country, you cannot contribute to the global scene. But what we are seeing is more and more developers are included into the big projects globally. And also not only in AI, but as well as blockchain industry, we have a lot of small teams that created global products and sell them on global market. So it is a huge potential then terms that a lot of people that are tech savvy can contribute to this global scene and collaborate on global level with leaders in terms of business, sales, and marketing, which are mostly like America and more developed countries. And what I love the most is that these people are, let's say, in the top 10% when it comes to quality and expertise. So there is a lot of untapped potential there. And when it comes to collaboration, they can contribute to the global scene for sure. We are seeing that more and more people understand that collaboration is the way to go when it comes to innovation, as well as education is really good. Like we have the best mathematicians in the world. So that is also contributing to the tech scene as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anita. And you nailed it by saying collaboration is so critical and so important for this. Mauricio, again, I'm very fascinated by understanding how not the big macro markets, but the smaller markets that are emerging in the space is behaving today, right? So it gives a very good glimpse on what to expect in the future. Mauricio, in New Zealand or in the ANZ region, there is a lot of collaboration that I've seen in the news, of course, between university, academia, and industry, right? So what kind of collaborations do you see in your region across industry and the academic community? You're on mute.
Okay, we are growing the industry and academia integration because now we noticed that the landscape of research is changing from too theoretical to practical uses. So now we are trying to attract PhD students to do research which real benefit society. So in that sense, we are offering scholarships and we're trying to create IT centers around the country to see if we can also employ them after they graduate, so we can see the real research moving forward into the companies. So we see that also other companies are coming to New Zealand, although it's a small country, 5 million people, but we see that Amazon is implementing their all factory here. So we're expecting more people to come to this place and see we need more researchers actually. That's why we're trying to attract by offering a better environment for them to do their research in terms of equipment, scholarships mainly, because this is not we are in the bottom of the world, so now things are a bit expensive, so we need to have support for the government. And the government itself, they are implementing tools to use in their across many industries. For example, they're doing the algorithm plan, so they want to make it more transparent. So when they implement any software, they want to let us know what kind of thinking are behind the decisions. So they want to make that happen, so everybody gets a clear picture of the situation where they are in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mauricio. And it's so right. And then I depending on who you talk to, right? If you want lesser COVID sensitive societies, move to New Zealand. And if you're good in AI, you get a scholarship too, right? But then depends on who you ask in the US, that could be a controversial statement, right? It's like liberty and things. So you mentioned something around like when we look at the industry, right? One of the most important things for industries and societies to boom is the economic activity. And one of the more critical elements there is like, one is technology and how that can transform, but access to financing and access to actual capital is another big challenge across the world, right? And that whole landscape of financial services and lending especially is rapidly evolving and changing in the age of technology and AI. So Shri, from your vantage point at Experian and being here, not me, you run a global team, but from your vantage point, what are those trends and changes that you see when it comes to lending, and AI, right? Or just in general, financial services and AI?
So I think the whole uh, lending landscape is undergoing a profound revolution. And if you look at historically how financial institutions used to lend, it was largely on a set of, I would say, traditional sort of rules. And even sort of 15, 20 years ago, like as recent as sort of 10, 15 years ago, right? It was a lot of it was physical. Three things are happening as we're seeing the lending revolution. First, a lot of this is moving to the digital world. And instead of having rules and actuaries spending sort of time making decisions on how to lend loans, a lot of decisioning on lending is starting to become automated. But that's actually opening the way for something quite interesting to this audience in particular, which is actually bringing in AI and ML in how we make those sort of decisions on who we lend to, right? And if I look at my background, I grew up in India, and my mother, I remember, wanted to put herself through a PhD in linguistics, and she didn't have the funds to do that, and she wasn't in an environment where someone could recognize that this individual might be sort of high potential and it's credit worthy. The traditional models and the ways of sort of lending and the frameworks just didn't allow for that. With AI and with ML, that reality can be changed now. Now we have much more sophisticated ways of evaluating creditworthiness and risk of people, and that's dramatically improving financial inclusion. It's creating a much better outcome for financial institutions because they have a greater opportunity of consumers whom they can lend to. And it's dramatically improving financial inclusion, where there are portions of the population globally who are actually quite creditworthy, but with traditional methods, you can't actually see them. They're invisible. So that's having a very significant sort of change. And then finally, there's another, the third big trend is what I think often people are referring to as data-centric AI, which is there are a lot of questions being asked about the data that can be used to make these decisions. In North America, historically, the regulations have been quite specific and restrictive, and over time, these are slowly sort of expanding. But particularly sort of in some of the other sort of countries and continents, APAC in particular, there is much more leeway to experiment and use additional forms, expanded forms of data to improve how these lending decisions are being made and improving financial inclusion. For example, things like cell phone data, you can use AI to extract patterns from cell phones to see if this person might actually sort of be employed and be sort of credit worthy. And those are some interesting things which are happening.
Awesome. Thank you, Shri. And I must say, I must put a plug in, right? I interviewed Shri on Stories in AI, and you can check it out at storiesinai.com. And Shri actually breaks down the entire industry and defining the future of fintech. But it's a fascinating thing what's happening in technology-induced, on the one hand, you have technology-induced disparity because you're creating these haves and have-nots, but also there is technology-induced, financial and societal inclusion. That is a huge trend, that is a mega trend that's driving, and it's equalizing everything around. So no, thank you for your insight, Shri, and thank you everyone, right? Amani, can I ask you about, again, coming back to Egypt and Africa in general, right? What are some of the challenges you see in the market for implementations, and where you are in terms of the journey of the country in terms of maturity? What do you see are the challenges in your region? for implementing AI?
The risk of having, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. So I think
Okay.
looks like Amani some connectivity issues.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, we'll come back
No
to
worries.
her. I'll ask the same question to. Okay. All right, Amani. Sorry.
You can.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, we have actually some challenges regarding.
Amani, we can't hear you. Okay. All right. Let me just, we'll come back to Amani when I think her connectivity is back. Honestly, some of the challenges in the region is also connectivity, right? So I think those are things that the government and the infrastructure teams are actually working on. So really appreciate her being here. Anita, let me ask you the same question in a different way, right? When you talked about Serbia and European region in general, but Serbia as a specific specialized market, what are the advantages or disadvantages versus the opportunities in your region? I mean, across Europe, but also specifically in Serbia.
Thank you. As Shri said, I started this initiative called AI Serb back in 2017. Because of tech inclusivity, we understood the importance of including more people into AI ecosystem, not only the developers, but as well as legal part, as well as people from legal and from business side. And it is more about including more people so we can develop better products for our market. And what are the opportunities are definitely, as Romani said, we started our AI strategy back in 2020. And we're kind of keeping up with the EU region. So most of the EU countries now have AI strategy for the upcoming 5 years. And they're trying to implement a lot of not only the infrastructure when it comes to data, but also education, because a lot of education is needed to understand and to develop AI products, because AI product cycle is totally different than the one that we are used to. So education is crucial in this part. I will say that opportunities are definitely talent that is sitting in Europe and not fully utilized in terms of a lot of people have great education and knowledge, but there is a huge gap between people who are just entering the market, like just starting to learn AI, and from people who are like PhDs and 10 years in this field of research as well as implementing it. So I think that EU is starting to bring that gap. And also what I love the most, we started to understand the value of collaboration, and I'm collaborating as well as with AI Austria, Bulgaria, Croatia, Finland AI. So we kind of created one initiative called Borderless AI. So I hope the more countries will join and let's say have the same goal to build AI that can contribute on a global scale. What are disadvantages? Definitely is, as you already mentioned, are the investments, but that is changing. Especially in Central European region, we see more and more investments that are going in millions into the products that are really promising in the AI sector, as well as other innovative 4.0 industry products. So it is like changing. I think that there are more opportunities than disadvantages, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Anita. Amani, you're back. Thank you for joining back.
Yeah. Sorry for interruption. Sorry for
no worries. Totally understand. So let me come back to you on the question, and give us a view of some. I'm on mute.
Can I just make?
Sure.
Can I just make? Can I just make one comment? What Anita said. I think the comment on really like talent and expanding that certainly resonates, and I think it's a common theme across. I think it's an important one across the world. And how do you actually take something which only a PhD in machine learning can sort of do? So I think your initiatives on education and strategy seem like they're sort of well directed. I just wanted to say that certainly resonates. And that would be something great if we could sort of across the globe start to drive and adopt some of that.
Yeah, and you know, thank you, Sri, for that commentary. And I want to just add one more little thing there, which is technology now allows. So there's a huge problem when you get to implementation. Like as an entrepreneur working with several large organizations, there's a lot of requirements of where people reside because of regulation, where people reside who have access to the data and so forth, right? But technology itself is bringing in a solution with advances in things like federated learning, transfer learning, few-shot learning kind of capabilities in deep learning, which you can now have actual data science talent remotely located and still deliver solutions for another parts of the world without, violating the regulatory requirements and needs. So thanks for that comment. It really, jogged that comment for me as well. Amani, let me come back to you and, give us a view for, like, as I said, young country, young new country, Egypt today, right? What are some of the challenges and limitations that you're facing in implementing AI and making AI a part of national strategy?
Well, we have some challenging regarding the opportunities. We have a great power in teaching our calibers and delivering some initiatives and program for education. But on the other side, we have a very limited number of companies, and this led to a very limited number of job opportunities where we need to have this get enlarged, get exposed to many companies inside and outside to get to avail more job opportunities for those graduates to practice machine learning and AI. One of the other challenges is security and related to the data confidentiality and the risk of the other side of the AI.
Thank you, Mani. That was very, very insightful for sure. I'm keeping an eye on the time. I have a few more questions that we want to cover through. So, Mauricio, you're a PhD researcher in the intersection of law and technology and the who's wrong, right? I was recording a Stories in AI episode with an industry expert announced in a few weeks, and he was talking about what it comes down to when we think about AI governance and ethics. It all comes down to accountability, right? Almost every rules and regulations we have around use of technology or anything was all about who do I point my finger to if something goes wrong. Well, in the world of AI, where you have automated or even semi-automated decision systems, robots making decisions for everybody, how do you hold them accountable, right? How do you, what is the future of the legal status for robots and intelligent systems?
That is a great question. Yeah, this is a debate we're trying to find out. So I've been doing this research for 4.5 years, and I still haven't found. But what I found is that, yes, we can distribute the responsibility among, for example, manufacturers, software engineers, insurance companies, so everybody can share the risk. Because, as you said, we are coming to a point as that in the future, very near, machines will take control, not in the bad sense, but they will take control. They will have their own decision making based on the environment they are in. So they're gonna say, "Hey, I like that way because I found that according to many searches on internet, this is the best way." For example, they don't need any human in the loop to let them know that, oh, this is right. And most of the times, it's like experience said also, Sherry, some decisions are based on algorithms that they find out that, okay, this is the right person to give money instead of others. There is a risk of bias. So nobody tells that because this is something that should be transparent, but sometimes government, including agencies, they also hide, or they don't want to tell what kind of decision I based upon when they want to, for example, hire somebody instead of other people. So this is a big issue. So ethical would be in the case of robots, for example. If you buy a robot, can you abuse? Can you kill a robot? If they become a legal person, they should be respected because they have a legal right to leave, for example. You cannot just turn off without due process. There's something that we don't see anywhere in the world. There is no legal framework still. I know Europe is very advanced. Italy, for example, they're trying to come up with some kind of civil rights for robotics. So that's the way we're going to. We try to mingle those new entities into society. So this is the main challenge, and I want to see in your lifetime how it's gonna be.
You know, I must say, Mauricio, being a technology optimist and a lifelong technologist, I mean, we have to really see that world where robots with this completely autonomous is going to mingle around in the society and have a normal life to require legal rights, to be honest. But there's a few things that you actually called out, I think worth noting for the audience, right? One, I want to call out what kind of frameworks does it happen? So Sam Altman of OpenAI has written a pretty lengthy blog on this, I think early this year or late last year. And he talks about the future wherein like it's not going to be, you still have to govern, but you're not governing for the AI, you're governing for what could be the builder of these AI or the companies that are building this AI system. That's your first step, right? And then he has a whole layout on how there will be societal displacements. So how do you account for that, and so on and so forth. So, but great insights there, Mauricio, to actually talk about it. So taking that on the other side, Shri, one last question for you before I ask a common question to everybody is: if you're an organization building those robots, building those intelligent systems, one of the number one challenges today is doing AI at scale and successfully for organizations. People are doing small projects, but building an actual robot is a much different problem, right? What is your advice for organizations who are, and and I'm asking you, we know each other, you have actually done an amazing job at Experian, how you're leading the charge in financial services with AI and data-driven products. What does it take for companies to be truly successful with AI? Mute. You're on mute, I think.
I think it's four things. I'll try to be brief. It looks like we're slightly over time. I think traditionally in AI systems there's a lot of focus on AI performance, which is how much better an algorithm or a device or a process performs better than a human. But I actually think there's a more holistic approach to actually getting true AI impact, which involves four things. The first is performance, of course, but the second is scalability, and that's operational scalability. Does the whole ML or AI operating cycle sort of work? The third is adoption. Is it embedded well enough in the business or personal or consumer processes that it can actually be used? And finally, trust. So can it actually be sort of trusted? So a more holistic approach to AI would involve all those four things: performance, scalability, adoption, and trust, not just an infatuation with performance.
Awesome. Thank you, Shri. And we're running out of time. I have one question for everybody, and you have 30 seconds to answer, all right? What is one thing that what is your global AI call to action? How can we work together with your region to progress AI globally, right? So I'll start with you, Amani. What is your call to action?
I think I'm ambitious enough. We can start to build a global talent hub for gathering all these expertise with the different domains and different cultures, so we can have working in global projects in machine learning and AI.
Thank you. And you have one here with Swiss Cognitive AI Hub. So excited to be engaging. Anita, what's your call to action? Sorry.
Yeah, I would just say to anyone to contact me on LinkedIn if they want to join the Borderless AI initiative. What I think everyone can learn from EU region is collaboration. We early understand that every country has a different development cycle, and we're on a different stages. So in order to, as Mauricio said, avoid biases and avoid some of the moral ethical questions, we need to collaborate. And to create let's say, the good foundation, we need a collaboration, because in Europe, every country has a different culture. So this was highly important. So everyone who wants to join on board and create a better future for all of us, just contact me on LinkedIn and we can connect and see what we can do together.
Thank you, Anita. Mauricio, what's your call to action?
I think the key is the collaboration. Try to find within industries, even within universities, how to connect with other universities across the globe to change ideas, to exchange research papers, and tell the world that the beneficial of AI can be attributed to everybody, not only within their industries.
And Shri, what's yours? Thank you, Mauricio.
Educate and democratize. I think everyone here should. This is like the computers in the 70s. It is not something which only a few people do. Educate yourself, educate your children, educate your children's children, and think about what you need to do.
Thank you, Shri. Now, my dear fellow panelists, this was a wonderful discussion. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience learned a lot. We got a very good, fuller perspective about the state of AI across this thing. And I just want to leave you, everybody, with this, the audience, right? I think every one of us, each region, each country, each societal individual has a role to play in furthering AI's ambitions or the humanity's ambitions of furthering life and extending life and experiences with AI. So pick your role and play it well and play it together. And collaboration is the name of the game. Dalit, over to you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks all of
much.
you. Please stay quickly with us here. It was really great. A huge wow, and thank you for all the great insights. There was a lot to share and to discuss and to brainstorm about. And I would like to point one point, especially a special thanks for overcoming these technical obstacles that we have been facing now. I mean, involving all the regions, we have to accept these kind of challenges. It just belongs to the whole technology world. And I think one of the points that we have been discussed today, robots, human eyes, gonna they have the same rights like humans? Where are the borders? At the end of the day, I think we have really to discuss these things as early as possible. On the other hand, we just have to face that we are struggling also with really basic infrastructure. I mean, I'm keeping telling the same sentence again and again, but at the end of the day, this is definitely part of the problems that we are facing, connectivity. So this is one of the things that a huge thanks to involve everyone, to bring everyone on the stage, no matter where you are. This is something that we have to accept. So thank you, Ganesh, for your support as our supportive Swiss Cognitive Fellow, for your passionate way of moderating and engaging our panel. You also engaged a lot our great audience. There were quite some questions. Please, dear audience, reach out to the people via LinkedIn, ask your question. It was really fantastic. Thank you, Amani, Mauricio, Anita, and Shri for enriching this event with your viewers. Now,
thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Now, unfortunately, I have to share with you an important note. We just saw that on LinkedIn, there is an invitation that asks you to pay. So please don't press any event invitation on LinkedIn. It's going to lead you to a fake page asking you for payment. Our event is for free. Unfortunately, we are being abused, but we're also very sorry. Things like that is one of the downside of being successful, but challenges like this are also make our community stronger. Now, next on our agenda, I would like to invite Nina. I'm thrilled to interview you, Nina, about cross-continental perspective on AI, America and China. Nina, you're an expert of Chinese venture capital and technology sector. You have nearly 20 years of professional, financial, and business media experience. You're not only an expert, but also a writer and the author of 2 books, Red AI, Victories and Warnings from China's Rise in Artificial Intelligence, published in 2019, and US-China Tech War, what Chinese tech history reveals about future tech rivalry, just published in 2021. You said everyone is talking about the US-China tech war, but few try to understand it from a perspective of history. Nina, what does the understanding of the US-China history mean to you when it comes to stage of technologies today?
Thank you for having me. Since my work every day is to cover the Chinese technology sector, and during the 2017-2018 timeframe, the U.S. has, initiated the trade war and also starting to place Chinese companies like ZTE and Huawei on its entity list and stopping them accessing the global semiconductor supply chain. The U.S. and Chinese technological rivalry was, becoming more and more center stage. And I wanted to understand more and deeper about what was the cause and the strategy and the underpinning rationale for this intensifying rivalry. So that's why I started looking to the history of how China's technology sector grew and developed during the past 40 years. And what I found was actually there are quite a few misunderstanding in terms of how the U.S. or the world understand how China's technology sector became to be stronger than before, and even perhaps some people would argue is threatening the U.S. Technological supremacy. And that is why the U.S. felt urgent need to contain China's technological rise. So if you look at the fundamental reason why China's tech sector actually developed during the past 40 years was not because of forced technology transfer or IP theft, as the U.S. accuses, and what many people perhaps tend to understand from those perspectives. Those definitely definitely have taken place, in China. There have been forced technology transfer, there have been IP theft, but those are not the fundamental driver. The fundamental driver of China's technological development was China's integration into the global supply chain, the global industrial and technological supply chain. What China was doing was very similar to what Japan or South Korea went through before China. They first entered the global industrial supply chain from the lowest value chain, and then they slowly move up. And China was doing exactly that. It was providing cheap labor. It was, entering a lot of markets from the lowest value and the most labor-intensive segments. And the hope, or by the pattern of how other countries progress technologically, China would slowly move up the value chain, like Japan and South Korea before them, and then slowly move to the top value chain of the industrial supply chain. So of course, this process was interrupted by U.S. sanctions, and now China is sort of sitting somewhere in the middle, upper middle level, depending on which industry you look at, in its migration along upwards to in the industrial value chain. So I think that's important to understand. China's technological development is a result of this process, of this repeated process of countries joining this globalized industrial supply chain and slowly moving up. And so we are at this, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, just to hop in quickly, sorry to interrupt, but listening to you now, where do you see then China standing in the global AI ecosystem?
Well, so it's like when people talk about technology, they tend to talk about them as if they're one thing. Of course, each industry is very different. Semiconductor is very different from AI. So if you look at AI, of course, China is very strong in terms of AI applications. So it's a very interesting contrast between China's AI sector and US AI sector. So if you look at the fundamental technological breakthrough, such as the deep learning, framework, and also the AlphaGo landmark win against Li Shidou, and also GPT-3, and all those fundamental research success were achieved outside of China, mostly by US and sometimes British institutions. But in China, it's about learning that technology and applying across different industries. And China has been very strong and very rapid in making that mass application.
Well, that would be interesting if you can emphasize a little bit more, like what is in the big difference? Where do you see the big difference?
Well, like I just said, the US is very strong in terms of fundamental scientific research, where China is very weak.
Yeah, but also from a European view, like you mentioned that before, like especially between China and the US. But if we look a bit to compare of the rest of the world, that would be very interesting. Where do you see there the big difference?
Well, Europe also is quite strong in terms of scientific fundamental research. Like, DeepMind was a British company, but no country is as strong as China in terms of applying, the AI technology in different sectors like public security, in terms of, installing facial recognizing cameras, in terms of applying AI in healthcare. And of course, China's autonomous driving vehicle sector is quite strong. I think it's only second in terms of, total fleet of autonomous driving cars in testing or on public roads, and also applying AI in education, and in and also nowadays with 5G, China is pushing forward a big smart factory initiative. So China is quite rapid and applying all this technology, and those are mature technology that didn't originate from China perhaps, but was able to be replicated and applied across this huge country, achieving a market scale probably other countries can't compare.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned that China applies the technology and replicate technology. What can the rest of the world learn from China and also from US? Can you give us some points where you say, okay, this is something, like 3 points where we really need to focus on?
Well, the strengths and weaknesses of the US and China, I won't talk about Europe for now, but they are quite complementary. So where the US is strong, China is weak, and where China is strong, the US is relatively weak. So I think, what other countries can learn from China in terms of trying to achieve the speed and scale of how its AI sector can grow so rapidly is perhaps number one, give more government support. Chinese government does offer a lot of support and incentives to AI companies in terms of talent, in terms of offering all sorts of tax incentives and giving them preferential treatment in certain sectors, etc. I guess also perhaps increasing the partnership between government and private industries, because as we apply AI in different sectors, especially some of the sector that's public sector related, such as smart cities or IoT, this requires greater collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. So having this, very, I guess, smooth cooperation between government entities and private company would certainly help AI applications in applying to those sectors. And for the US, of course, it has the most vibrant innovation ecosystem, its ability to attract talents across the world, and its open and free academic environment, and its ability to produce original ideas and scientific breakthroughs. Those are really the fundamental strength of the U.S. Innovation ecosystem, which China obviously is not very strong, and perhaps will take a long time to improve.
Great, very insightful. Thank you, Nina, for sharing your views on China and the US, and also reflecting what the EU or the rest of the world can learn from them. I'm sure the audience enjoyed it as I did. Dear audience, if you have any specific question we weren't able to touch on, please reach out to Nina via her LinkedIn or enjoy reading her books. Nina, it was my great pleasure to interview you, and I hope to see you very soon again.
Thank you.
Welcome. Now, let me introduce you to our panel chair, Susan, one of our great Swiss Cognitive Fellows, who will rock the next panel discussion about perspective on AI in Europe, Asia, South America, and Australia. Susan, you have a guiding principle. When engaged with each other, magic happens. I fully agree. And Andy and I had recently the honor to be interviewed by you, and our conversation was indeed very inspiring. Susan, you drive changes easily, but always keeping an eye on everyone's uniqueness. You believe in ethics and diversity by design, and now I'm reading your phrases word by word. If mindfully used, ethics in technology creates solutions and services that involves those we have systematically ignored within and across nations, and at the same time, open new business opportunities. Susan, I can only underline this with my own quote. I like to say, now we have the chance to unbias the bias. Now let me introduce your panelists to our audience. Tunc, you have over 15 years of industry experience in technology, and now you are empowering the technology governance in Turkey. Your role is the center of the fourth industrial revolution. You're a business developer with a vast experience of emerging markets in industrial automation for all manufacturing industry. You have a strong business experience and managerial network in Turkey, Middle East, and Africa. I have read about you that you truly believe that technology should be adopted in a responsible way. Further, I want to welcome Clara to this panel. Clara, who just joined the stage, very short notice. Because we had a short notice, I have some. So first, I would like to thank Tushar. So please swap the picture. Thanks, Tushar. So first of all, thank you very much. He's one of the guys who just jumped into within less than 2 hours because we had a person who is sick. So again, a huge thank you for being so agile and coming on the stage. Tushar, you manage Kansaltancy venture and have been very active in venture capital and angel investment space with an aim to bring prosperity to human lives. It is an absolute honor to have you today with us. Now I'm coming to Clara. Hi, Clara. Sorry for that. You are a very inspiring person too. You lead the AI and machine learning platform at the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Brazil, which is an affiliate center of the World Economic Forum. Your focus there is on increasing responsible AI, adopting by piloting governance mechanism for both the public and private sectors, and promoting norms on AI ethics, transparency, and explainability. Last but not least, and with a very impressive background, please join me in welcoming to our panel our distinguished professor Fang Chen on stage. Fang, you are not only a prominent leader in AI data science with international reputation, you're also professor, book author, award collector, and won the Oscars of Australians since in 2018. The Australian Museum Eureka Prize for Excellence in Data Science and other remarkable achievements. You filed more than 30 patents in Australia, US, Canada, Europe, Japan, Korea, Mexico, and China. Amazing. I can't wait any longer. Susan, please kick off the panel.
Thank you so much, Dalit, for the stage. Thank you so much for the great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm looking forward to discussing the trends and chances from different countries, from Turkey, from Brazil, from India, and from Australia. Thank you so much. Before I move to you with my questions, I would like to share a view I have from Germany, and I think it also applies to Switzerland in this case. Sustainability is a key word. For me, it's not only a word. It's something that big companies had started years ago, but now the trend is even small and medium-sized companies, not only on the manufacturing side, but also on the tourism side, are already now setting their goals, sustainable goals. For me, this is a great chance for AI and the marriage between the two, the marriage between sustainability and AI has just begun. And this is a great chance, your chance, whether as an investor or decision maker, to help companies achieve their sustainability goals. To push that up, there's this act coming, a law kind of coming in Germany, Supplier Chain Act or law. I think in German it's called Lieferkettengesetz, a long word. And for me, it's really a good development. Why? Because we're now going to commit ourselves to have responsibility to everyone interacting with our products along the value chain or along the life cycle, so that we leave no one behind. Remember, we can always leave someone behind by ignoring them, by exploiting their environment. All such things we're now going to take care of. But as you know, politics and law, they come slowly and slowly. Technology is moving faster. That's another issue. We can talk about that next time. But maybe just to quote Uncle Ben for the Spider-Man fence, with great power comes great responsibility. And you've got this AI power in you. Thank you so much. Let me move to you. I would love to start with you, dear Clara. What do you think? What's the state of AI development in Brazil?
Thank you, Susan. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Looking specifically at Brazil, Brazil is currently at a crossroads in our AI policy development. So on one hand, in April of this year, the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation launched its national AI strategy, the Brazilian Strategy for Artificial Intelligence, which was a product of a long road of public consultancies. And this particular document, it looks at considerations for legislation, for AI governance, for ethical considerations, for crosscuts with the international sphere, but also on specific issues that are important to Brazil. So looking at AI, the use of AI in productive sectors. So we have agriculture, industry, healthcare, and smart cities. But then we also look at some things that are important and on an ethical standpoint. So the use of artificial intelligence for public security and the use of AI in the public sector, which is one of my focal points. And then Brazil is also currently debating its AI regulation bill. So last week, Brazil passed in its lower house, it passed the Marco Legal for artificial intelligence, which lays out the principles for the use of artificial intelligence within Brazilian society. So looking at transparency, looking at human-centered AI, these ethical considerations that are connected to the OECD's high-level principles. However, both of these documents have had some heat especially from civil society, because they don't quite elaborate exactly on how these ideas will be implemented within Brazilian society. The ministry is currently elaborating action plans for all of its strategic notes within its national strategy. But then the regulation that's currently being discussed doesn't quite get into what kinds of risk-based regulations are going to happen, what are going to be the connections that it will have with the proposed EU regulations on artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of debate right now in Brazil of, okay, we're talking about regulating AI, but exactly how are we going to do that? And then my organization, C4IR Brazil, something that's very important to us is to show practically how we implement norms for the ethical and responsible use of artificial intelligence. So our two focal points here in our platform for artificial intelligence, the first is AI procurement or AI government procurement, where we're trying to see where we can put in mechanisms for transparency, for responsibility, for ethical use within Brazil's very formalistic procurement systems. And then we're also scaling up the World Economic Forum's Empowering AI Leadership project, which looks specifically on how to capacitate corporate leadership to take on an important role in implementing ethically AI within their organizations. So that's sort of where we're at in Brazil right now, both at a national stage and then looking specifically to our projects.
Thank you so much. A lot of movement taking place. Thank you so much for that. Dear Tunc, what about you back there in Turkey?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And it's great to be a panelist on such a platform on the most pressing issues related with AI. So today, Turkey has an established data use and infrastructure, and data creation and usage are also on the very high level. But to boost this technology, also Turkey established its national AI strategy, like Clara mentioned for the Brazil, with the same ethical and responsible concerns. And with this strategy, Turkey in the next couple of years will focus on training the AI expert, supporting research and innovation, ease access to high quality data, strengthen international cooperation, and accelerate labor transformation. So focusing on much more on the manufacturing industry, data is there and it's very easy to create. And also there are some investments and funds created to boost the AI technology. But the main concern there is basically the skill set. So the industry really face a lot of difficulties to find the right skill set to boost the AI. And that's why the Turkey AI strategy include the training the AI expert on as a first priority.
Very good. Training and education awareness, that's one of the key things. Very good. Thank you so much. Dear Fang, you've got 2:30 a.m. right now. I'm so glad you're here with us. You've made it possible. Now, to you, on the academic side, what's happening right now in Australia?
Very pleased to be on this stage. So overall, I think Australia is on par with all the other countries like Brazil and Turkey. I just mentioned that from overall government perspective, there is a national roadmap, there is ethical principles, and also the national AI action plan is in place. Particularly from academic side, I think the development from university sector around artificial intelligence is well ahead. So why I'm saying that is, if we're looking at AI as a discipline or as a computer science related, more than half of Australian university actually rated either on par or beyond the world, what we call the benchmark degree level. So if we're looking at the per capita publications or the intellectual property generated around AI from Australia perspective is pretty high. I mean, even though it is a small country, but if we're talking about the per capita wise, it's quite outstanding. And I also wanted to very quickly touch upon on the applications in Australia, which developed in Australia and been used from public and private sector. Looking from that's quite amazing, accelerated so much. The sectors, for example, like infrastructure around the planning, building, and manage the demand from citizens on the transport, manage the on-time running, congestion from the natural resource perspective, manage the quality of water treatment, to understand, agriculture, climate change, resilience, health, you name that. There's plenty of them. The last not least is if you're looking at the startup community, it's very, very active. I mean, it's, I can't say every single startup, but it's a huge amount of a percentage of a startup actually utilizing part of, some of the AI technology, either for efficiency, for, customer satisfaction, whatsoever purpose, you name it. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of activities going on, a lot of aspects addressed. Thank you so much, dear Fang. Dear Tushar, back in India? What about the ecosystem, the AI ecosystem? What's the overview? Can you please give us an overview?
Thank you so much for the question. So India has initiated a national artificial intelligence strategy under its policy making to guide the research and development of emerging AI technologies. And large technology conglomerates and startups, they lead the acceleration of AI in India. And the pandemic has played a pivotal role in rapid digital transformation across the country. It is being AI is being adopted vigorously in banking, retail, and healthcare sectors. And as per a Forbes article, India ranks only second to China in the number of computer science graduates produced every year. And the Labor Initiative is deeply involved in national initiatives such as a universal identification project. So the biometric mapping of each citizen has been done in India for more than 1 billion citizens, and a new facial recognition database for law enforcement agencies. And many global companies have set up AI research centers in Bangalore, and one multinational AI company raised more than $325 million to boost enterprise efficiency with artificial intelligence. Otherwise, if you look at across Asia, then China and Japan are leading the way in AI adoption. This can be seen from a World Intellectual Property Organization report, which said that Japanese and within Asia, Japanese and Chinese companies hold the highest AI patent portfolios, and Chinese research organizations make up 17 of the top 20 academic players in artificial intelligence patenting, and 11 of the top 20 in AI-related scientific publications. And the budget of China for research and development spending is $275 billion, which is just above 2% of its GDP. And the other countries are following that strategy in putting percentage of their GDP in research and development. Like China is doing, Japan is doing it, South Korea is doing it, Singapore is doing it, and Japan, in fact, has given a large-scale push into IoT sensor deployment across Asia. So it is a part of its AI strategy, given the data it will generate. So a lot of exciting times for Asia and India, for the AI space. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for this great overview. Now, coming back to you, Clara, something more specific. You mentioned some regulations and policies. What about the gains? What have you been observing back there in Brazil? Where have you seen gains? Go ahead.
So I guess talking about it both in terms of the public sector and private sector, and thanks for the question, Susan. So speaking about Brazil, but also about Latin America as a whole, I mentioned that there have been gains in public policy in Brazil, at least that we're speaking about public policy to govern artificial intelligence. And this is a trend for Latin America as a whole. So we've seen that many countries have already started adopting at least government digitalization strategies. So this speaks to adoption of these technologies within the public sector, and many of them already allude to the use of artificial intelligence. And then we're seeing this movement starting with Brazil, but many other countries within Latin America and South America have also adopted national AI strategies. So these sort of already show how to prioritize the use of artificial intelligence within your company and your society. However, something that's really important for these gains to actually take effect is that these public policies aren't just cut and copy from similar policies in the global north, that they actually speak to the direct risks and contextualizations that each of these countries have. So for example, in Latin America, something that's very important is the brain drain. We have many different universities that have programs that capacitate people in the technology sector, but many of these researchers are leaving for other companies in the international sphere. We also have issues with access. So it's great having all these new services with artificial intelligence, but we need to make sure that everybody has access to these. And when we have disparate access to ICTs or digital literacy, these are definitely issues. And then looking at specific ethical risks that have to do with countries in the global south or countries that are majority importing technologies is super important. In terms of the private sector, we've seen that large Latin American companies, at least 80% according to an MIT technology review study, are adopting AI particularly for customer-related applications. But something that's important too is that Latin America has a huge startup and small business ecosystem that works in technology. So how do we, I guess, harness this cool ecosystem to benefit the adoption of artificial intelligence in Latin America or in Brazil is extremely important.
Great. Thank you so much. So the challenge you'll have is how do you keep those people who have learned a lot in your own country so that the country benefits from it? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dear Tunc, now let's be specific. HR department, they're leading people and managing the human resources. What about the state of AI in the HR departments back there in Turkey, please?
Thanks for asking this question, Susan. Basically, as you said, HR departments are indeed running one of the most critical resources of AI, which is the human itself. Yet they are the least prioritized in the organization. So to understand and target this issue in Turkey, the Human-Centric AI for Human Resources project has been initiated with the Ministry of Technology and Industry and the Employer Association of the Metal Industry and the World Economic Forum. And within this project, we reach over 350 HR top managers from more than 250 public and private institutions. And our findings were a bit shocking and require immediate action. Only 21% of the HR has plans to implement AI, and only 36% of them are aware of the basic requirements of this technology. And to be more specific, only 4% have an existing policy and plan. And this really concerns us. And HR mainly thinks they can give a better decision and improve their outcomes by using AI. But most of them see the lack of AI expertise, privacy concerns, and the cost as the main barrier limiting their AI investment. So in summary, their HR departments are still in the early stage, but this is also an opportunity for us. Maybe we could have a new initiative to be much more responsible and to have human-centric AI by teaching them and leading them and having them in our strategy and politics in the companies, in the institutions, and in the countries.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much also for your answer. I remember back in Kenya, we used to say, well, others fly, say like 3,000 kilometers per hour. Some are still walking slowly. So I think it's also our duty to pick up those people wherever they are. Thank you so much. Dear Fang, coming back to you with more specific questions, what are the AI applications in Australia we should focus on? Or what is your suggestion? Maybe something we could learn from you.
Thank you, Susan. That's a really great question. I guess for Australia, I think for globally, and probably is all applicable. When we're talking about AI, I mean, there's a lot of debate and even some of the fear coming from public, the general public. I guess that somewhat coming from how you actually use AI and what the AI is used for. So my firm belief is AI, if we focus AI around to improve the quality of life for the citizens, for example, some of the examples I alluded to, like to manage infrastructure, to manage, reduce the failures on critical infrastructure, to have a less disturbance of to citizens' life, to look into air quality, to look into water quality, to look into the power generation, how to improve the efficiency, and the schools, where to allocate them, health, how to help the diagnosis, help to fast the screening, and housing and retail, how to improve the customer experience. So a lot of the things are centered around how to improve the quality of our citizens' life, so that to make sure those are the AI are the tools developed for help human being to live better life, to have a better society. I guess that will deviate a bit of a conversation around harmfulness. Where's the benefit come from? I always want to give example of you know, when in the big cities, you always have a sewage, and the sewage, how to maintain those things, not, you know, falling apart, not give the bad stuff coming out of the sewer and spill onto your backyard or the parks. And currently, a lot of exercise is people have to wear all the protective gears, climb into the sewer to inspect what's happening and what's on the walls and what's potential leakage will come from. And I actually wear those gears into sewer once, and just once, I think is enough, because I mean, why not use AI and robotics, all those advanced technology to help to understand the operations in the sewers, so that we don't risk human lives into those situations. So I think that will be a good example of apply all those you know, AI and other advanced technology in improving the quality of life.
Love that. Thank you so much for the answer. Great. Let's not just do it because it's cool or it's possible, but to make a valuable impact on people's lives. Thank you so much, dear Fang. Great. Dear Tushar, now coming back to you, could you please give us some perspective on investing on AI, you know, in the future? Because I think that's your special area.
Sure. Thank you. So, you know, it's very different from model-driven investing methods. Data-driven investing, it aims to examine information in its entirety and find connections or patterns that cannot be revealed through traditional formulas or models. Perhaps the most important emerging trend in data-driven investing is artificial intelligence investing. So this strategy uses big data to make automated investment decisions to enhance alpha, which is a measurement of your active return on investment. Essentially, AI is used, has never been used in traditional investment strategies. Traditional investment strategies have used publicly available data like financial statements or market data. But there is an increasing use of unconventional data, for example, internet web traffic, satellite images, and social media. So that,
Lost you, Tushar? I think we can go on. We can come back to you, Clara, and he'll join us later. Thank you so much. Dear Clara, the third and last question to you. You mentioned the policy challenges, but what are the right, maybe you can push it back to the challenges you mentioned before, maybe to add on that, or tell us what will happen after the policies have been implemented. What are some of the sorry, keep on.
Oh, sounds great. I can definitely talk about some of the policy challenges that I mentioned earlier, such as the brain drain, which is something that's at the forefront of all discussions about what are the particular policy challenges of Latin America in this realm of artificial intelligence, and talk a little bit about at least what Brazil is doing to combat that. So we know that that brain drain is something that is on the forefront. So just to give a snapshot on how deep it is, there was a study by the Inter-American Development Bank's FAIRLAC initiative on AI for the social good in Latin America, and they researched 12 different Latin American countries, and they saw that in universities, 96% of universities have classes on the development of AI. I think something like 75 have classes on the development of automated systems, and at least 55 have actual centers of excellence of artificial intelligence. But then, so that shows that that Latin America is investing in its tech talent for artificial intelligence. But then on the flip side, when you look at the number of AI patents, I think something only like 1% come from Latin America, which puts us at the very bottom of all the other regions. So we see that this is a very important problem, and something that is important to ensure that these super high level researchers stay in Brazil is how do we invest strategically in centers of excellence and other types of systems to ensure that there is some sort of reason why these researchers stay behind in Latin America. Instead of going to big tech companies abroad. So something that, for example, Brazil is currently doing, the Ministry of Science, Technology, Innovation, in partnership with various research organizations and universities, has launched 6 centers of excellence or centers of applied research in those priority areas for Brazil. So we have agriculture, healthcare, smart cities, industry, put in various different regions in Brazil. Some are here in São Paulo, some in Goiânia, others in the north and in the northeast, which is very important to have that regional diversity in Brazil. But the fact that they're going to be attracting this talent either from abroad or from back to Brazil is something that's extremely important. And then another thing that I mentioned, yeah, super important. And then another thing that I mentioned is sort of this idea of how to implement these ethical principles of AI that are being cited in our national AI strategies and in our regulation. So something that we're trying to do through our AI procurement project, which is based on the World Economic Forum's AI procurement in a box, is looking at specific mechanisms, say an algorithmic impact assessment that's based on the one in Canada, but we're trying to put in some of the specific Brazilian risks so that it's something that makes sense for people to use when they're acquiring artificial intelligence and gives them a little bit more confidence so that they know that they're doing this in a way that is responsible and ethical.
Thank you so much. Those are great keywords that brings me back to Fang. And my last question, dear Fang, how are you going to handle AI ethics? Because I know ethics is someone, if you talk about it, people will do something with their eyes. I understand them, but maybe you have some simple ways. How will we handle this in future?
Oh, thanks, Susan. I think Clara alluded to a lot of good content around AI ethics. So we can't avoid this dilemma, which is people have doubt and public trust around AI. That's centered around how we actually develop and put AI in some development box, which is called principles. And then the key challenges, of course, from principles perspective, I guess everyone, or at least from the research community and the government policy perspective, all land into similar sort of core principles. For example, you need to have a benefit, you need to, have a fairness, a transparency, explainability, accountability, or privacy. All those key terms. The key challenges is how to take those principles to practice, which is how you actually can implement these principles. So we have see a lot of implementations on the way of taking the very dry abstract principles into processable steps to implement all those one and safeguard the AI development. Also, the last but not least is just the training associated with that. Just bring this principle in life so that all the life cycle of AI development or shareholders, they're aware of these issues that through the training and keep them in contact. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much for the valuable discussion, for the valuable contribution. Maybe the last word you'd like to share with the community today. Dear Tunc, I'll start with you now. Your last word. What would you like to share?
Yeah.
In a few seconds.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the technology itself have different pillars, and the technology itself, we need to build our capability, and we need to build a strong ecosystem, and we need to focus on the technology governance, as Clara and Fang already mentioned. And thank you for the last word.
Thank you, Tunc. Clara, your last word, your keyword, only 1 or 2 words.
I think my keyword is AI governance is extremely important, but it's important that we look and see what's important for each one of our countries and look at our specific risks and context to ensure that our governance makes sense for the artificial intelligence and its applications within our own countries.
Thank you so much, dear Clara. And you, Fang?
Responsibly accelerate AI development to benefit society.
Thank you so much. Those would have been also mine. Just shortly, dear Dalit, I'm almost done. Responsibility. And because the laws take a lot of time, it's our responsibility. And just to close with Gandhi's thoughts, I think that's what he said. In a gentle way, we can shake the world. So let's do this and mind the gap mindfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you from my side too. You were speaking out of our hearts, and I think this is exactly what we as a global AI community without border can contribute to all these topics, make sure that we're developing towards an ethical and responsible AI. So it was an incredible panel. You set the tone. And Susan, thank you for the professional and involving moderation. I love it. We have such a diverse audience with us, and I can only imagine how much they benefit from all of your insightful experience. Thanks to all of our panelists, Tunc, Clara, Tushar, and Fang, for being with us today. I see it as a great present that we are able to bring us all together across continents and across culture. This is definitely one of the benefits out of these exceptional, difficult times. Saying this, we're now able to create a very special moment all together. Now, listen to that.
For anybody in the audience who's got a birthday today, happy birthday to you.
Now, whose birthday is it? Happy birthday to our dear friend, Jacques Ludic. So exciting to have you with us at our AI community celebrating your birthday. It's actually an honor to have you on your birthday with us. So happy birthday from the whole team, Swiss Cognitive, as well as from the whole AI community. Dear audience, most welcome. Thanks for being with us actually on this special day. Dear audience, most of you will know Jacques already. He contributes to Swiss Cognitives since the real beginning and represents us kind of in Africa. Jacques, you are simply amazing. Let me introduce you, Jacques, to the audience. And one thing is I just forgot to mention, Jacques is the one who actually managed to bring Tushar on stage within less than 2 hours. So thanks a lot again for being that agile. Now, you are a smart technology entrepreneur, AI expert, founder of Cortex Logic, Cortex Group, Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, 5 Teens, and C-Sense Systems, award-winning AI leader with a PhD in computer science and over 20 years experience in AI, data science, and its applications. You are also the author of the books Democratizing AI to Benefit Everyone and Neural Networks and Psychopathology. I'm sure your insights will be highly appreciated. Jacques, please share with us the perspective on AI in Africa. The virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Dalit. Much appreciated. Thank you also for the birthday wishes. It's great. For me, it's so wonderful to participate here, 7th of October, talking about the 7 continents. So it's wonderful here. Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me clearly? So I can just go ahead?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so my massive transformative purpose is around shaping a better future in the smart technology era. I also wrote a book, Democratizing AI to Benefit Everyone, that talks to that theme. And also my businesses and things that Dalit just talked about is really focused as vehicles towards this. And what I would like to do in this short keynote address is to just very quickly, there we go, is to really cover, before I get to let me just go to the next slide. There we go. So what I want to start off with is to talk about democratizing human-centric AI in Africa. And I'm going to talk about just the pulse in Africa as well. So when I talk about this, you'll get a feel for what's really happening. And for me, it's quite exciting. And maybe even if I go back one slide, if you look at a little history in terms of my personal history around AI, my whole career has been in AI. But around 2016 2017, there was not a lot happening on the continent, but things exploded since then. And that was one of the reasons I founded the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa as an AI community in Africa. But since then, a bunch of stuff happened on that front. And I'm going to talk about data science in Nigeria. I'm going to talk about deep learning in Daba, which is Google. Fantastic inputs into this continent. And there's a few other of the tech giants contributing significantly as well. So I'm going to, I personally also sit on the board of CIRRUS. I'm going to talk about the AI Africa Consortium. CIRRUS is the Africa's AI initiative, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Data science Nigeria is one of the shining lights of the African continent, so I want to definitely talk about that. And then in Kenya, there's initiatives like ACE and a few others that I'm going to talk about as well. So without further ado, if I just go back now to democratizing human-centric AI in Africa. So this is not showing everything, but it gives you an idea of some of the companies, but also some of the organizations and non-profit organizations and big tech companies, as well as some of the conferences that's being held on the African continent, and just some of the big names. And I will highlight on the next slide Data Science Nigeria, as I've mentioned. There's obviously MIA as well, the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa. But I think deep learning in Daba has got a massive impact on the African continent. And if you think about even with the Kaggle of Africa, Zindi is the Kaggle of Africa, providing data science competitions across the African continent, which is doing a fantastic job with a tremendous community that's been built there as well. There's a bunch of companies that we can be very proud of. Some companies that's already making an international impact as well, with huge funding, like robotics as well, and Data Profit, InterDeep there in Tunisia. My own company, Cortex Logic, and the Cortex Group. We've just launched Vive Teens here as well, which is an AI-driven platform for teenage mental wellness. Very excited about that. But there's many other very exciting initiatives on the African continent. So if you look at the African ecosystem, so I just want to very briefly just highlight a few things. I think it's in the news. We see Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, GE, Siemens, all those companies, NVIDIA as well, Intel, Huawei, making a big impact with support, trying to build capacity. But if you look at the homegrown initiatives, I think Data Science Nigeria, MIA is also a partner. I was also involved with the startup, but Bayo Andenkambi, who's the visionary, the founder there. Unfortunately, he was not able to speak today, but he's been the brain behind Data Science Nigeria, and the work that they've been doing and the example that they've been setting for the African continent is tremendous. They truly try to democratize AI. They've got an AI in a box that they try and make available to, even if you don't have internet, you have access to software and to books, to all sorts of material. And they're trying to build, they talk about 1 million entrepreneurs or data scientists in 5 years. So, sorry, in 10 years. So it's amazing what they've been doing. Deep Learning in Daba is an annual meeting of the African machine learning community. There's many Indaba X events hosted in 27 African countries. Very proud of their activities. Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, we can also provide training courses like data science, machine learning now. We've been officially approved by government. Very excited about that. But there is many other things. I want to also highlight just CIRRUS. They provide state-of-the-art computing infrastructure, also cooperation, open learning, looking at arrangements with some of the MOOC learning platforms like Coursera, for instance, and also providing a foundry and a fund. And the AI Africa Consortium was just launched on Tuesday, and very exciting. They actually facilitate all this cooperation between universities across the African continent, as well as research organizations and government agencies. And I also just want to mention this work that MIA did with the Volkswagen Stichting. It's actually from Germany, And there's a bunch of European universities from Aachen and Utrecht and Amsterdam and Rotterdam and London University, London, Oxford University, also University of Ghana. They were all collaborating on this. And it was all about the diffusion of AI in Africa and broadly internationally as well. So very excited. I'm also participating in OECD. They are doing wonderful work. In my book, I also talk about the national AI policies as well. And then I also want to highlight the Vice Chancellor of University of Johannesburg, Professor Selethi Marwala. He wrote a book, Closing the Gap, that talks about the fourth industrial revolution in Africa. I also wrote a book, Democratizing Artificial Intelligence to Benefit Everyone. That's more focused on a global message. But I do have quite a bit of messaging around Africa, and the whole appendix talks about democratizing human-centric AI in Africa. I also have a LinkedIn article that talks a little bit about that as well. Just briefly before I talk about what democratizing AI also means, very exciting news. The audiobook is also available. It will be published this month on all these audiobook marketplaces. I'm also going to look at ways to actually democratize, making it affordable and cheap to get access to this information as well. So you can get more about that. So very briefly, what I want to do in the last part of this, I want to, because it's very relevant, we want Africa, we don't want Africa to be left behind, but we're all part of a global community. And we want to make sure that we as a global community is doing the right thing. So in the smart technology era. So we know we live in the fourth industrial revolution, the smart technology era. We see the fusion of all these new technologies, and we see the impact in all disciplines, economies, and industries. So the question is, can we act in a wise way, in a proper way to actually create that better future for as many people as possible? And we know about the profound impact that AI has. Now, AI, there's obviously other technologies also in the smart technology toolbox. But because of all the data that we're generating, we've created this nervous system with the internet. We've created a nervous system for society, for humanity. And with all the data that we are generating, with people being instrumented, with IoT, with the industrial internet, we've generated so much data that it's perfect. We've set everything up for AI machine learning to unlock tremendous value. And we see the speed of technology change. So the question is, can we adapt quick enough? And I think what we also see here is the combination of not only assisted and augmented intelligence, we're clearly moving to autonomous intelligence as well, like self-driving cars, autonomous trading, and a bunch of things where you will see just AI operating and making decisions. So we got to be wise and be smart in terms of what we want to do here. So that's why in the book I talk about we need to make the right choices to really ensure that better future, and we can still do it, even though it's like a runaway train. And I know currently in the world, the problem is not just with tech and with bias and data abuse. There's more things. We know that people struggle with sense making, with meaning making. Clearly on economics front, we've got wealth gaps. We don't want autonomous AI to contribute further to that. So we got to be sensible in how we engineer this better society. So job loss, a problem, human agency, dependence locking, institutional decay, disorder, destabilization of society, all of these things. So what do we need? We need visionary leadership. We need collective sense making. We need wisdom, really wisdom, practical actions to ensure that better outcome for humanity and civilization. So we move in the right direction. So in the book, I talk quite a bit about, I do a sense making across the whole spectrum. So you get a really good feel for the impact of AI and what we should be doing to move in the right direction. So in terms of the impact, if there's any doubt about the impact, it's clear that it affects almost everything. Our productivity, our effort and time we take to complete daily tasks, the way we search for information, our understanding of complex problems and how they fit together, understanding of the brain, privacy, transparency, ethics, all of those things. So it's really important to make smart decisions here. And what we see is digitization or digital literacy is becoming the largest separator, because it obviously provides opportunities for knowledge, growth, and all of those kind of things. And it's not longer purely religion or location or cultures being the largest separator. So we got to make sure we enable people. Now, in the book, I talk about, I'm giving some hints, I'm really bringing in some thought leaders that's really helping us to think properly about this. So I wanted to emphasize John Rawls with the Rawlsian theory of justice that talks about one that promotes fairness above all. We should not be thinking about justice. We should be thinking about justice from a view of ignorance. So you should almost forget who you are, and then try and make sure that we engineer from that perspective. So that's what it's about. And Jamie Susskind talked about the future of politics. He just talked about the importance of accountability and checking, and all of it. I'm concerned about surveillance capitalism as well as state surveillance. And I think it's very, very important that we make sure that we don't create digital dictatorship and that we don't have manipulation of people, psychological manipulation of people. So we need to come up with proper solutions. And there's been great books written. There's even a Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, that talks about these things. I absolutely encourage people to look at that and inform yourself. I also reference this quite a bit in my book. We know that the benefits for society and social good and for Africa is tremendous. And I think Max Tegmark said, helping civilization to flourish like never before, as long as we manage to keep the technology beneficial. So that is absolutely key. And I don't have time but Klaus Schwab's quote here is absolutely fantastic as well. And if you look at the positive impacts, and that's why even my companies and organizations that I'm involved in, this is kind of the areas that we focus on. I focus on healthcare, wellness, education. I've invested there. I think this is one of AI's best benefits, positive applications for society is really around that. The future of work, it will affect it. Clearly, AI will optimize and augment people's lives and create new efficiencies, enhancing human capacities. So clearly that's going to be the case. But there are risks and concerns. And I go in a lot of detail into each of the potential risks and concerns and what we can do to avoid that. And there are very specific solutions. We need to collaborate. That's what I love about Swiss Cognitive, the fact that, and even this conference here, the focus is about collaboration, bringing across borders and stakeholder groups. And we need to develop the policies to assure that development of AI will be directed at augmenting humans and common good. And then we got to shift the priorities of economic, political, and education systems to empower individuals. And that's why I came up with a massive transformative purpose for humanity that's really focused on empowering the individual and helping us to stay ahead in a race with the robots. And so the book is really, it's really a sense-making journey around that. And I just want to maybe end with this. I introduce also Sapiens, but just to end off here, what I would love to see is that we evolve a dynamic, empathic, prosperous, thriving, and self-optimizing civilization that benefits everyone in sustainable ways and in harmony with nature. And you can read about this in a book. I will have some more podcasts around this. But these 4 buckets, I'm talking on a systems level, on a quantity level, quality level, but they also place the best possible livable habitat. And for me, I maybe just in the interest of time, because I don't have time, I just wanted to emphasize, I think it's very important that people have hope and a purpose. So it's so important that we move towards, and I'm just going to show one thing here, that we maximize quality of life, character building, sense making, well-being, and meaningful life, and use smart technology to actually achieve that. And if you think about our children, we want to give each child the opportunity to maximize quality of life, character building, sense making, well-being, and meaningful living. And what I've done is, with the massive transformative purpose for humanity, it's not just that. There's very specific goals and there's very specific solutions to help achieve that. And obviously on the African continent, we'll obviously work on implementing this, but I think clearly this is something that we as a global society need. And my final thing is, I'm not going to go into the details, just the last one here. I've introduced Sapiens, which is a human-centric, user-controlled, AI-driven super platform with personalized AI agents that not only empower individuals and monetizes their data and services, so that not the tech giants and all the other people is getting all the benefits, but that the individuals is also getting it. But it could also be extended to families, virtual groups, companies, communities, cities, city-states, and digital nations and beyond. And I do have quite a bit of more detail about these kind of things and why we need it, and also what does it mean for the individual user, as well as what does it mean for communities. And with that, I want to end. I know my time is up. I don't know if there's any questions, Dalit, but happy to talk a little bit more if needed.
Thank you, Jacques,
if there's time.
for absolutely. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jacques, for sharing your vast experience and expertise. It's really a lot that we can discuss more and more and more. One question I would like to know, I mean, you have such a vast experience. If we're looking at the last decade, what would you say have been the 3 main developments with regards to AI when you started more than a decade ago to today?
More than 2 decades ago.
Even. Okay. I made you younger now.
Yeah, no, it's so I would say, Dalit, let me just stop my presentation. I'm not sure if I can stop it, but let's just get exited. Anyway, you can still see me.
Well.
Okay, great. I would say, Dalit, it was quite interesting. For me, in the 1990s, when I was still doing my PhD, it was kind of research, and we were still building the technology to be useful. There was still the traditional machine learning technology. With my first AI company, and especially during the 2000s, we've used traditional machine learning. We didn't use really big data, but the traditional machine learning made a huge difference, and we were able to make measurable impacts for businesses. If you think about an industrial space, just to increase throughput with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% implies millions of dollars. So with machine learning in the 2000s, we were able to do that. But then in the book, I talk about the history of AI. But in the 2010s, the amount of data, the computing power, the fact that we've got application-specific AI, and all of those kind of things that enable us to actually do deep learning. So deep learning was an amazing breakthrough I would say from 2011. And that paved the way for, even if you think about Tesla, what they're doing with machine learning, they're just using they're just using data to train these systems to actually and get closer and closer to autonomous, self-driving cars. But if you think about IoT in the internet, the fact that we can store massive amounts of data, that we can compute, I think that changed the ballgame tremendously and puts us in a position where all the things that we're talking about now is possible. I'm a believer. I was not a big believer. I was seeing the limit, the impact in the 2000s, but the 2010s and 2020 and beyond, I think we're going to see amazing things. And it's not just with AI and machine learning. I think with blockchain, with as decentralized technology, I think with biotech, nanotech, with AI, that fusion
and
of smart technology.
quantum. I mean, honestly, if quantum computing comes in, we're going to have even much more. And I mean, listening to you, it reminds me to the movie Hidden Figures. Have you seen it?
Yes, fantastic movie.
So
fantastic.
I think this is to audience, whoever haven't seen the movie Hidden Figures, check it out. I think this is exactly how you see how technology empowers us and how people empowers technology, but it's always going hand in hand. The more we have, the better the connectivity, more computer power, all these things together is actually bringing it to where we are today. And I'm just thinking, extrapolating it to the next 2 decades, let's see where we end. Jacques, it was great talking to you, especially on your birthday. And I'm privileged to be able to discuss more with you, even bilateral, because you have so much to share. Dear audience, feel free to reach out, and especially reading Jacques' book. And see you then. Enjoy a lovely evening with your family, and regards to everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now you know if someone has birthday and it's coming together with our event, let us know. We're going to celebrate all together. And now I'm excited to announce our next panel about perspectives on AI in Europe, Asia, Australia, and Africa, and in space. Tom, you have the great pleasure to chair this brilliant panel. Most of you already know Tom. Tom recently joined, actually it's not recently anymore, Tom joined Swiss Cognitive as a facilitator and panel chair and will support our team with his amazing talent, unlocking the potential of every panel discussion, captivating the audience. Tom, you're the founder of AI Journal, a free open source information hub on AI and emerging technologies. You have a passion for providing tools and resources to educate people on these topics covered on the AI Journal and provide the audience with an engaged platform to help them. Now, let me introduce your panelists. Khaled is currently the director of the National Center for Robotics and Internet of Things Technology at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, CAST. Khaled is the founder and was the director of the Technology Transfer Office at the Communication and Information Technology Research Institute at CAST. He was the head of Vision and Operational Analytics Division at the National Center of AI and Big Data. He has led many national end-to-end advanced technology projects. Khaled identifies and manages several strategic partnerships with local and international players, and he's part of the ICT sector strategic innovation program developed team at CAST. He's an entrepreneurial director, proven in his ability to enhance operational efficiency with over 15 years experience in the research, development, and innovation sector, backed by a strong educational background with a Doctor of Philosophy and Master of Engineering Science, both from Western University, Canada, and Software and Computer Engineering. Khaled leads many national R&D projects related to areas of AI, data analytics, Internet of Things, industrial IoT, advanced robotics, smart cities, autonomous system, automation, cloud computing, and Industry 4.0. A real expert in this field. One of the next panelists is Sue. Sue, you are the CEO of Queensland's AI Hub, following your roles as Research Director for Cyber Physical System at CISRO's Data 61. You led the development of Australia's first robotic roadmap, outlining how robotic and automation will impact on every sector of the Australian economy. Thanks for being with us. I'm not sure what time you have, but it must be middle of the night. Yes. Now, seat number 3 is reserved for Aya, who is presenting the view on AI from the space. Aya, you are working as an AI researcher at SpaceML and are responsible for applying machine learning to solve problems related to Earth science. One very remarkable story is that you have received the Extraordinary Contributor Award from the NASA Impact Team for your contributions in the SpaceML. Congratulations. You strongly believe that technology has immense power to improve life, that it can translate any motive and data into a large-scale business solution. Then we have Pios. He joined us today, also a very short notice. Thank you so much, Pios. So Pios, you are a passionate, multi-skilled and talented professional with several years of international experience in the startup entrepreneurship and breakthrough innovation industry. You have worked with early stage entrepreneurs at the Launch Lab, the best university-based incubator on the African continent. In your role as community manager at the Launch Lab, you develop into an expert in venture commercialization, especially in software technology, and you have worked with over 500 projects since 2015. Now, thank you, dear Tom, for rocking this phenomenal panel. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Dalith, and thank you to all Swiss Cognitive team, and thank you to the audience for being with us today. So we've got some great panelists, and as always, moderating these, I always want to jump straight in to give you as much value as possible. So Khaled, I'd love to come to you first with a question, sir. And I'd love to know more about the Middle East landscape to do with AI and how countries in the Middle East are harnessing the power of AI. If you could please share some examples and the kind of background to what's happening there, we'd love to hear it, please.
Thanks for inviting me, and delighted to be part of this global and amazing event. And in fact, artificial intelligence is a game changer in the global economy. It has massive potential and is estimated to contribute around $16 trillion to the economy by 2030. Since the onset of the fourth industrial revolution, businesses across the Middle East have started to shift their focus toward emerging and in-demand technologies, such as artificial intelligence. Either they can move forward with the changing times or will be left behind. But taking a look at the economic impact in this area, it is safe to say that being left behind is not an option. The Middle East is expected to grow 2% of total global AI benefits in 2030, and this equates to 320 billion US dollar. Several parts of the Middle East have already embraced artificial intelligence and have started implementing digitization methods. After 2030, the scope of AI in the economy will certainly increase. Thus, the Middle East needs to create strategic plan that can be laid out for the future. GCC countries, for example, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, have already demonstrated a commitment to implement and develop AI technologies. Business organizations have invested in new technologies that are supported by the government. With the growing significance of artificial intelligence, Middle East nations, through their innovative initiatives, such as in the United Arab Emirates, recently they launched their AI strategy 2031, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan as well, and others. Place the potentials of AI at the center of the national economic strategies is I think it's important to harness the potential of AI in the future.
Amazing, great examples as well, Khaled. It's so important today, especially to understand how AI is being used across different cultures, right? And what they're kind of seeing as a priority and what they're seeing as important, which is great to have a global perspective on this panel. So Sue, I want to come to you next, and I'd love if you could kindly share what the AI landscape and what industries look like in Australia that are using AI, please.
I think most industries in Australia are using AI. I think what is interesting is the industries where AI is being created by Australian companies. So our finances sector does a lot of AI in-house and probably is the most advanced in terms of how it's applying AI. However, for our burgeoning AI ecosystem, the AI companies that are emerging tend to be focused on applications in defence, mining and energy, agriculture, fisheries and forestry, which I think reflects, some of the pillars of the Australian economy, and also Australia's strength in, things like field robotics. So I guess your more outdoors, rugged types of AI are the things where Australia is specialising.
Very interesting as well, because you've got a lot of land to cover, right? And AI can definitely help with all that. I can imagine within infrastructure and water usage and all those kind of applications. And I guess it's the same, but I don't want to jump to assumptions. Piers, I want to come to you, please, and kind of get a snapshot of what the AI landscape looks like in South Africa, and perhaps you can touch on what that role has across the wider continent of Africa, and seeing how AI is being used over there, please, sir.
Yeah, thank you everyone for having me on the panel today. Absolute pleasure. In South Africa, we have seen a very dramatic upturn, in terms of the consumption of smart technologies like artificial intelligence. South Africa has some of the best universities in Africa. I think top 5 universities in South Africa. And bulk of the work in terms of, rigorous theoretical research that has, happened in the last 5 years has been on how to focus on translation from laboratories into marketplace. And the reason is because we believe that this revolution is the one that we can truly participate in, because the barriers to entry has been, removed. We now have access to unlimited compute power. We have access to a deluge of data, and we now have a very emerging population of young people that are taking STEM very seriously. And all of these factors has made it possible for us to dare to dream, in the era of the 4th Industrial Revolution. So I think the diffusion of AI in Africa, and especially in places like South Africa, is becoming more and more, it's happening on a very rapid level. And entrepreneurs as well are leveraging the capabilities to build easy, smart solutions out that they can test, iterate, get feedback, and improve, over a very short period of time.
Yeah, very good insight. Really appreciate that, Piers, because it's interesting. And I love the fact that you said the focus is on like getting people into STEM and starting from the ground roots level and starting from the youngsters to get them more in it. Because in the UK, there's a massive agenda around the digital skills shortage, and it was something that was highlighted in the UK's roadmap for how to use AI going over the next 10 years. So a really important topic. And AJ, I want to come to you next. I'm obsessed with space, and it's an area I always love to learn about and get ideas around. But before we touch on that, maybe you can give us a snapshot of the AI trends in Asia at the moment and what's happening over there, because arguably it's one of the most advanced places, or it's what we hear about being one of the most advanced places. If you could give us a snapshot of what's happening there, that'd be great, please, sir.
Definitely. So to get it started with, many Asian countries in general have seen the growth of, we have seen a lot of service-oriented organizations previously. And one of the recent trends have been more towards hyper automating those IT, those service management pipelines using AI. And apart from that, we've also seen a lot of rapid development of AI along with the Internet of Things. And countries like India in general have been going more towards such low-cost innovations. And yeah, recently there has also been a lot of talk within India about diving more into low-cost agricultural sector. So the AI scene in India usually has 3 primary goals. One being extremely accessible, low resource, and also considering different demographics and incorporations at scale. And to take all of that into consideration, plenty of Indian startups have been popping up over the last decade. And India has and the plus point about India and some of the other developing countries within Asia is we have a large amount of population in the working age, and we don't have a lack of talent. We are full of talent. And we've also seen within India, especially, there has been a lot of VC money being poured into here. And yeah, there has been a lot of growth of many startups. And recently, I read about this somewhere that the amount of unicorns that have appeared within the Indian startup economy has more than doubled over compared to how it was before 5 years ago. So yeah, and the tech startup scene has started blooming, and recently we saw a couple of product related startups going public, and then a few others have been going public every once in a while. So I guess so India, in terms of Asia, Asia as a whole has been gearing up for the future, and India has started taking the step. It started taking the walk, and so it'll start running. And countries like China has also been working more towards conversational AI. If you notice, in every major leaderboard in natural language processing or image recognition, you would see a Chinese company out there on the top. And Nina had mentioned, autonomous driving, and just applying the AI-based applications towards the solutions has been very popular across China. So yeah, the countries like in Asia have just like started, and you'll see more of it in the future.
Yeah, 100%. What was that company? I can't remember the name of it. The one that made all the headlines about how it had been valued. And I think it was out of India. It was a food delivery company, and it was just insane. Like the growth that they had behind them, and obviously heavily leveraging data and AI to be able to do that. And it's just shows you the kind of businesses that are going to be cooked up quite soon. And I mean, for anyone watching, there's a awesome documentary you can watch for free on YouTube. And I think all you have to do is type in investing in Asia, and it shows about all these different very top tier investors looking at China and just how advanced they've used, from the amount of concrete they've used compared to US, and how they've become a superpower within this short space of time, and using facial recognition so they don't have store clerks, and all these points you just touched on, AJ. But it makes us think, why do companies bother doing AI, right? And Sue, that's where I want to come to you. And we touched on a few ideas about going across massive landscapes and looking more on the robotics side. But what is it, or what are the areas of why Australia is investing in AI?
Yeah, well, some people actually wonder why we bother doing it at all, because we are a quite small country with 24 million people, but you've already touched on it. We're a huge continent with a small population, which means that we actually have to leverage technology to be able to do some of the things that we need to do. So we've only got a small population, but we have thousands of kilometres of infrastructure. So rail lines, pipelines, roadways, bridges, power lines that all need to be inspected and maintained. And we actually just don't have enough people to do it. And so that's forced Australia's hand to be able to invest in these technologies so that we can make sure that, particularly some of our critical infrastructure is being maintained. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we've had to get quite good at things like cyber physical systems, where we have, the physical manifestations of artificial intelligence actually going out and doing some of this work for people. And I think the other area where Australia is also applying AI is in, the protection of our environment, because again, the Great Barrier Reef is almost the size of Italy, and we simply don't have enough people to be trying to monitor the reef and make sure that we're preserving it as best we can.
Yeah, great points as well. And I guess it's one of those problems where you've got so much land, you don't know how to track it all, and you can't get people going out to all those areas. So I guess using some sort of geo AI that can spot it all and feed that back. I remember it was when the wildfires were happening, there was a lot of use cases around AI kind of detecting them and spotting them from very early stages, so you don't get those unfortunate situations happening again. And I'd love to switch it up. So Khaled, I'd love to come back to you, sir, and look at what AI adoption is in the Middle East, and what's the kind of perspective? How quickly are they adopting it? What are the kind of challenges to adopting it? Would love to get your insight on that, please, sir.
Well, I believe most of the, not only, Saudi Arabia, but I believe the GCC countries are shifting gears toward the development of AI-based technologies. In Saudi Arabia, Vision 2030 and the National Transformation Program 2020 identify digital transformation as a key goal to activate economic sectors, to support the industries and the private sector, and reduce the country's dependency on oil revenues. As part of this vision, strategic objectives include using information technology to improve the efficiency of healthcare sector. Another focus of these strategic objectives is on the industrial sectors, for example, oil and gas, logistics, among others, and urban development and infrastructure. AI is expected to contribute around $135 billion to the kingdom's economy across its various sectors. I believe that this can be enhanced if the government were to deepen its support of RDI and localization of AI, not only in Saudi Arabia, but I believe in the whole Middle East countries and of course the GCC countries. Knowing that oil prices are rapidly changing and hard to predict, the government needs to look for alternative resources for revenue and growth.
Yeah, great points as well, making sure you can kind of spot those roadblocks, right? before they come about. It's a classic thing. The amount of people that don't have proper AI strategies, or they want to use it because it's a cool tool, but they don't actually understand what they're going to do with it going forward. And we're seeing a lot of it at the moment with AI strategies and roadmaps. And I think you touched on a great point there. So, Piers, I'd love to come to you and kind of switch it up a gear and maybe go in a bit of pivot from that point and look at a new direction. Following on from Khaled's great points, what's the startup system or what the startup ecosystem in Africa looking like at the moment?
Okay, yeah, so that really gets me excited because I spend a lot of time looking after university-based companies, companies who come from research through technology transfer offices. And we sort of saw a very difficult time between 2012 and 2014 because there was a tug of war between academics who really didn't see the need to spin off, their research into the real world. And you had legislation that made it also impossible for real entrepreneurs coming out of universities to take things and run into the real world with, because university wanted to keep a piece of that. We've now found this whole rise of, incubators and accelerators, and some people even call them inculators, that have now spread across the country. The government has also supported through enterprise agencies like the Technology Innovation Agency and the Small Business Development Agency. Because you must understand that South Africa has a massive unemployment problem. It's about 27% unemployment situation. And, to reduce that, the only way is to sort of invest in small, medium enterprises, and to do that in such a way that you can also take away most of the barriers to entry. So barriers like access to an environment where there is a mentorship, where there is international collaboration, and where it's also very easy to register a business, and have a business, address. And also have an environment where most of the corporate governance hurdles can be taken away from the very young entrepreneurs. So we've seen a dramatic increase in all of this kind of help that makes it possible for small businesses to thrive, knowing fully well that we have an average failure rate of about 94%, with small businesses launching, and reducing that and doing it in such a way that you can also then leverage smart technologies. I remember back in the day when I was at Stellenbosch University, the way we were giving access to entrepreneurs was to have them to partner with corporates through open innovation, or corporate innovation as well. So we would take somebody who's working on a chatbot solution and sort of pair him with a corporate that needs that, like a bank, and then preach the cost-saving ability of that solution to that bank to say, this chatbot can help you augment your call centers and all that. And instantly, an entrepreneur from the university environment has access to a minimum of about 2,000 customers, because now the bank takes that solution, sort of plays the role of a VC, puts money in there, build it to a point where he can use it, and the equity still remains with the individual. So we've seen all kinds of strategies come in place to make it possible for most of our young people to not just have jobs, but to be able to create jobs because of the unique challenges to experience. And the future looks a lot brighter because people are now getting access to a lot of free things, free compute, in fact, free storage, free mentorship and all of that. And that also makes it possible for people to dare to dream. And I think where we want to see transformation happen is if we can now connect our region with the rest of the world. The Middle East is just very close by here. How do we build bridges, exchange, because then you spot an opportunity in another man's country, you solve it. It's a win-win situation. And those are the kind of things we want to catalyze in the smart technology era.
Yeah, I love it. I'm all on board with it, Piers. It's a real focus on the training side and education side. And I think you touched on some great stats there, because we recently realized for research we were doing that it was around 80% of AI projects fail. So they never reach deployment and they never get to deployment. And you couple that with businesses that fail, and you couple that with the amount of other initiatives that fail, you've got a real quite like, what is it? 92% of data in the world is unstructured or something. So you
Yes.
couple all these kind of figures, how much
and about 80% of the models out of academia don't get deployed.
Yeah.
Just and I'm not jumping in, but we're currently doing a project for a corporation, and they do not even understand how to consume machine learning capabilities. But the moment we put it in a black box, like a software casing, and we made it look beautiful, they're like, aha, that is what we want, you know? So there's that huge dichotomy between research happening in a lab, where a lot of public money is pouring into this kind of AI research, but no one is deploying that model. So 80% of that model doesn't get deployed. You know, in South Africa, only 38% of our private sector and public sector combined is leveraging AI in any form, either be it at a very baseline descriptive level or more or less the predictive and sort of the advanced level. So we still have a long way to go, but we're very excited about where we're headed.
Yeah. Well, the classic 80-20 rule, right? There's Richard Cross that came to that, and it's always seems to apply to most things. Yes. So AJ, I'd love to, after great input by Piers, I'd love to come to you again, AJ, and look at how progressive AI initiatives are in Asia. What's the kind of support being offered by the government? Because Piers just gave some great insight. I wonder what it's like and what the infrastructure is like for supporting these technologies, or as I look at it, I see AI as a capability rather than technology. What does that support look like in Asia, please?
Definitely. So, like, we have been seeing a lot of like increase in research and development outcomes and like practical applications that are being deployed like in many different fields. Yeah. So, and yeah, government has grown to recognize that, and like they have started supporting in order to like bring more talents in general. So, for example, like we had China, and like Chinese government had like built 2 AI facilities to like focus purely on research, and they also like spent a large amount of money towards like R&D in general. They also had like these specific. There was this plan called Made in China 2025 by the Chinese government to promote like more development in AI. And I also read somewhere that one of their goals was to become an AI leader, like, or a leader of sorts by 2030. And apart from that, you also have like Singapore, and Singapore has a program called the Smart Nation Program, and that involves like the steps taken by government to promote more startups, to invest in more startups towards different fields of AI.
Yeah.
Apart from that, coming to India, the government increased its funding by twice the amount over 1 year, just to facilitate more development in AI, Internet of Things, and like the other similar fields that can like work in tandem as a part of this campaign called Digital India. Yeah. And with regards to space, government of India also like started cooperating. Like they brought in like 2 new policies and started bringing in more private organizations to like collaborate with more government space agencies. And like these have been like working towards more satellites, vehicles, and more towards analyzing satellite imagery information. And another like important tie-up with the government was there is a startup that managed to like speed up the whole KYC verifications process. It became like fully automated, it was very accurate to a large degree, and they also like ended up in the leaderboard for pretty recently. They ended up like getting a tie-up with the government in order to like go about with any e-identification processes.
Yeah.
So the governments have like started to recognize that all of this has been happening, and like they also like started providing their help towards identifying and providing more of a foothold to like bring the scene upwards.
Yeah, love it. That's crazy. Like you've got all these kind of advancements happening. That's why I love it. These kind of stories of, and I always get obsessed with the idea. And I've said it before on one of these panels where we try and predict. Right, we're so obsessed with predicting the future, which essentially AI can be. At its heart, is a prediction tool of understanding, so you have better insight. And you think we don't know what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, what I'm going to be having for dinner 2 weeks from now, but yet there we are trying to predict 5 years from now. And I just always find it so ironic that we're always jumping ahead of what the valuation is going to be, or what area is it going to be, or what kind of products we'll be using. But I do, without getting sidetracked, I'm digressing slightly, but Sue, I'd love to come back to you and expand off AJ's points So what areas are AI excelling in Australia, and what are the kind of challenges or bottlenecks to that? I mean, is space something that's being looked at by the Australian government? What are the kind of challenges and what are the kind of opportunities, please? I can't hear you, so I think you're on mute.
I
There we
can't
go.
unmute. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Australia is focused on space because we only fairly recently have our own Australian Space Agency. And I think where the opportunity is applying some of the areas where we already have strengths, such as in our resources sector and our agricultural industries, because a lot of the technologies there have crossovers that can apply to space. So, for example, the development of technologies that operate in remote areas that don't need to have people on hand to service them are all sort of the technologies that can be applied to space. So I think that's a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, amazing. Very well summed up, very quickly as well. I love it. It's a lot of value points as well. And I realise we've run over time now because I was getting very carried away with the questions and trying to focus on what value we can give to the audience. But I'm sure each of us, you can come and connect with us to the audience. So with Pierce, AJ, Sue, and Khaled, I'd have lots more questions for you, and I'm sure some of the audience do. But want to say to each of you, thank you for joining me on this stage and learn a lot from you in this short space of time. And thank you to the team and Dalif for giving us this opportunity to share ideas and exchange new patterns. So it's very exciting, and yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, dear Tom, for rocking this phenomenal panel. I could go on for hours listening to all of you. Thank you, Tom, for your passionate way again. And thanks to all the panelists, Khaled, Shu, Ai, and Pius, for giving us your view and sharing it with our audience. Now, it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce you to our representative of the Antarctica, who will do the grande finale today. Believe me, dear audience, this was one of our biggest challenges, to find AI thought leaders who can represent the AI view from the Antarctica perspective. I just want to tell you a little story. We had quite some people reaching out to us via LinkedIn saying, first of all, why are you talking about 7 continents? Second, who will you bring up? Penguins? No. A huge thanks and applause to Vento and Alex. Vento, you are a biologist turned data scientist who changed exhaustive fieldwork in place like the Amazon rainforest and the Antarctica Peninsula for data science work from the comfort of this home office. You are a pioneer in bringing cutting-edge technology from fields like computer visioning, AI, and remote sensing into pivotal, but not necessarily profitable areas like conservation and climate change research. With you, we will have Alex. Alex is completing this round. Alex, you are right at the intersection of technology and the environment, finding ways to bring AI into conservation and climate advocacy to meet the urgency of the moment. You're working in Antarctica and in oceans around the world with satellites, drones, social media, computer visioning, and old-fashioned fieldwork. So let's dive into the questions. It's my great pleasure to open this interview. Vento, to start with you, for 6 continents, it was not difficult to find incredible speakers from the AI ecosystem. Now, for our 7th continent, Antarctica, we had knocked on many doors until we found you two. What do you think is the reason for it?
Thanks for the question, Dalit. There are actually a couple of big
May I
reasons,
just
and one
interrupt you
falls-
quickly? We can't really see you. You're cut. Your face is cut. You may need to switch a little bit to one side. That would be great.
How about now?
Now I see only your hand, so let's see.
Can you say left or
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, now it's good.
Is this
Now
good?
it's good.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Go
Sorry
on.
about that.
No worries.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons is that Antarctica has really, really complex international regulations. So all of the AI work done there and really all science work done there is from academics. And what happens is that with the current market for AI, academia can't really compete with industry for talent. So we have a brain drain from the people that do AI at academia towards industry positions. And I think this is the main reason why you could not find anyone to represent, or you did find the two of us, but that you had trouble to find people that do AI in Antarctica.
Yeah, it was definitely very hard, and we are very happy to have you guys. Now, to both of you sharing, what can AI offer Antarctica? Alex, if you may start with this question.
Yeah, I think first it's important to sort of think about what we're doing in Antarctica most of the time. Like Bento said, it's a politically strange place, and the Antarctic Treaty set it aside as a continent of peace and science. So it's really a place where a lot of science is happening, from biology, ecology to glaciology, geology, physics, even. So it's a place where we're doing a lot of science, but it's also a pretty big continent. So it's hard to get to. Obviously, it's a remote, extreme environment. It's not a lot of real infrastructure there. So it's a real challenge just to do work. So AI and automation hopefully can sort of help us deal with some of those basic challenges of doing science in a place like Antarctica.
Yeah, I think there we definitely see the half full glass of AI being applied. Bento, what is your view on that?
Yeah, the main thing here is that there's not only a shortage of tech talent, but also of domain experts. And if there's any way that we can augment domain experts, we should, because there's also an urgency to take action in places like Antarctica that are really threatened by climate change. And Alex will go over that in a while, but yeah, it's really important that we do this kind of work.
So let's use this audience actually to do a call for talents. So whoever is willing to be engaged with Antarctica, please get in contact with Bento and Alex and do the first step towards them. Now, Alex, what are the challenges facing Antarctica right now, and how can AI really help?
I think climate change is the biggest challenge facing us everywhere on the planet, and that is certainly the case in Antarctica. There are parts of Antarctica that are among the fastest warming places on the planet. But we also have a fishing industry there, and pollution. Plastic pollution, like everywhere in all the world's oceans, exists in Antarctica as well, and other pollutants as well. So those are some of the sort of environmental challenges we have there. And all of those affect species that we care about, like penguins and seals and whales. And those species, I think, are important in themselves. But at the same time, Antarctica is a continent that's covered by ice. And I think in general, we would like that ice to stay in Antarctica and not go into the world's oceans. So we have, this major climate challenge there. But because it's warming so rapidly, and also because there aren't a lot of sort of conflating factors like human habitation. It's a mostly empty continent where humans are concerned. It's an opportunity to observe what happens when things change. And that gives us sort of a window into what things might look like in other parts of the world. So I think that's a place that the AI can help us with, and in sort of observing the continent of Antarctica, observing the Southern Ocean, so that we can see what things will look like, if we fail to curb warming as things start to change in different places. But the issue there is really one of scale, and I think that's where AI can help us. And like Bento said, there just aren't that many people working in Antarctica, so being able to use technology like remote sensing from satellites and drones, that gives us an opportunity to observe a lot of the continent quickly, ideally, but it produces a lot of data, and a lot of data that our domain experts don't have enough time to deal with by hand.
Okay, I would like to stay a little bit with this topic and Can you emphasize a little bit more about why should we care about the future of Antarctica? Why is it that important for the human being and the globe?
Right. So I mean, that first point of keeping the ice in Antarctica, and that's something we should all care about if we want to continue to have coastal cities. So that's an important one on its own. But I mean, there are a couple reasons here, right? I mean, just there's a aesthetic and sort of moral component to it. It is a beautiful and sort of near pristine place, even though we do have an impact on it. And I think Antarctica is just worth preserving because it is such an amazing place. But at the same time, it has a lot of impact on the rest of the world. Antarctica is a big icy place, and the Southern Ocean as a major cold water ocean really do interact with the whole global climate system. So it's a place that we have to understand if we're going to understand how climate change is going to affect other parts of the world. And we need to understand how things are changing there so we can predict how things are going to change elsewhere. And beyond that, penguins are cute, and we should probably try to keep them around for that reason, if nothing else.
Thanks a lot. Bento, coming to you, what does the cutting edge look like in Antarctica, and what are the current limitations?
Yeah, so most of the cutting edge research that I've done and some other folks have done in Antarctica focused on how can we get good results with algorithms like neural networks for computer vision with a limited amount of good quality labeled data. And also because of the shortage of people with domain knowledge. And you'll see that, that most of the papers have weakly labeled, weak supervised, semi-supervised, because we have to get the most out of the short amount of data that we have. And going back to the second part of the question, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this is academic work. So there are a lot of limitations here with, basically there's a cap to technical expertise that the biggest technical expert and domain expert can get at most 4 or 5 years of training. And then his PhD is done and he goes on and continues his life doing something else. So this also puts a limitation with funding because imagery is not cheap, and also the technical resources like compute and storage they're not trivial to get for academics. So these to me are the biggest difficulties.
So actually we're facing on one hand the lack of talents and also the continuity and sustainability of all this work. And on the other hand, also the technical obstacles that we have due to the surrounding, as I understand. Now, what is your vision for AI in Antarctica? Both of you.
Well, I think, to just segue right off of what Bento said there, I mean, one of the things to think about here, unlike, our other 6 continents, is that Antarctica is not, and likely will never be at the cutting edge of AI. We're interested in what AI can do for our understanding of Antarctica. And so a lot of the work that has been done so far has been, using what would be sort of old methods for anybody working in industry at this point. We're trying to catch up and deal with the problems of Antarctica and are not particularly worried about, the latest and greatest, algorithmic advances. So for me, it's really just bridging this gap between AI as it exists everywhere else on the planet and the very basic questions we have in Antarctica. Things like how many penguins are there? We need to know that before we can start trying to predict how things are going to change and forecasting how many penguins we're going to have in the future. And that seems like a small problem, but penguins are distributed everywhere on the continent, or at least on the coastline, and it's a lot of ground to cover. So for me, my vision is really an ability in the future to observe the continent widely, observe the whole continent of Antarctica in some way, or at least its entire coastline biologically, and to do that fast. So being able to do real-time or near real-time observations, and that's just something we have never been able to achieve with human power in Antarctica. It is just too vast and too remote.
Okay. Where do you see the future of Antarctica in the next, let's say, 5 to maximum 10 years?
Okay, this is a tricky question because my journey in Antarctica is probably ending next year when I defend my PhD. But from what I've seen, we'll continue to use more and more very high resolution satellite imagery, and that will really improve the scale and the repeatability of all the measurements that we do, based not just counting penguins, but we can, for example, track sea ice, which is really crucial for a bunch of ecological processes in Antarctica.
Okay.
And a lot more.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just said that your PhD gonna finalize soon. What would need to be done to attract people like you to remain working in this area?
That's a good question, right? I think that Antarctica, another unique thing about Antarctica is that there's very little compromise because it's not really a place for profit. So it could be a nice safe space for a collaboration between industry and science, and that could allow us to back people with good technical expertise for longer than a PhD project, and also gain us access to compute, storage, imagery. So this would be really, really a game changer for Antarctic science, especially when done with something like AI.
So to finalize, I would like to give both of you the possibility to give a wish. What will be your wish from the various continents, from the industries? What can we do to support what you guys are doing, and also to kind of enable a sustainable research and have more money to do this?
For me, I think it's worth spending some time thinking about what the gap is between technical expertise and domain expertise. And a place like Antarctica is a really good example there because it is so strange and remote and unknown. Now, like Bento said, we have some domain experts there, but still not that many people work in Antarctica. But there is this big gap, and we can't expect academics to become, top of the line, AI specialists, and in the same way that we can't, expect computer scientists and data scientists to become Antarctic experts. And so we need to spend a lot of time thinking about how we talk to each other so we can get better at that and become better collaborators. I think that's the biggest challenge right now. There's just a lot of opportunity to do good work in Antarctica, but I'm not sure we're talking to each other in an important way. So building up that center spot of being able to translate domain and technical expertise is where we need to go for a place like Antarctica.
Thanks a lot, Bento and Alex. A great applause to you guys. I'm very happy that we met you virtually and that you came to share your amazing AI insights from Antarctica. Dear audience, please don't hesitate to reach out to our specialist via LinkedIn. I'm sure they will be happy to answer the questions we weren't able to cover today. And again, thanks Bento and Alex for contributing to our global AI community without borders, even until the Antarctica. Now, we're looking very much forward to more collaboration in the future with all of you. And another insightful 3 hours of incredible content just finished. We just felt the AI pulse of each continent from the North to the South Pole. And I can't believe that the 3 hours of these thought-provoking, inspiring, and relevant insights across continents just ended. We all know there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to anything in life. and that applies to cognitive technology as well. We heard now the reasons for the development and application of AI that differs across teams, organizations, industries, countries, and even continents. And we saw how those feed into the global AI heartbeat. Now, my dear AI community with no borders, I would like to share with you a few key takeaways that I wrote together. Now, one of the biggest challenges that we've heard today, and honestly, we're repeating ourselves again, and again, is connectivity. Connectivity in various regions. And I must really say, I mean, we always have the feeling that here in Europe and in the States, connectivity is really stable. I'm living in Zurich, and believe me, where I live, I struggle with connectivity, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts, but shows me also where we stand. And when I think today, with all these people around the globe that we were able to connect, it's like a prison. And I'm really happy that we will work on that and getting better connectivity in the future. Another thing that we wrote down is that education is really crucial. How can we reach all the people? How can we make sure that people are aware of the potential of AI, how it can empower ourselves and make our lives more secure, more healthy, and safer? And obviously also the discussion that we had about, does a robot have kind of the same rights like a human being? How do we act with all these policy discussions? And this is something that we really need to be aware of. Now, would also, hold on, I have now to read. What Jacques, for example, showed us in Africa is that the exciting AI ecosystem, and he highlighted the importance of democratizing AI to the benefit of everyone. And I think this is something that also in the panel of Susan has been discussed. So we from Swiss Cognitive, with all of you, want really to work towards a democratized AI, making sure that we're looking at the ethical aspects and act very responsible. The last panel, the perspective on AI in Europe, in Asia, Australia, and Africa, and in the space. There we had the Indian development in AI and in IoT, and in Australia is using AI to preserve the Great Barrier Reef. Looking at this and what we just heard about the Antarctica, I think we see here a lot about how AI can actually support the climate change, can support the world, and at the end, ensure a safe future for the future generation. Actually, I wrote a lot of things down, but somehow time is passing very fast. We will put together all the key takeaways and we will send it to you, share it with you. That's going to be much more effective. It is already 3 hours of a lot of content, a lot of discussions, and I'm happy to invite you to our next Cognitive Virtual that will take place in November 8th and will reflect the topic of from automation to autonomous. And if you are an expert and you're interested in to share your expertise with our great AI community, please reach out to us. Now we're saying goodbye, my dear audience with no borders. Let's connect on social media and follow us on LinkedIn to stay tuned and share your great posts on social media using the hashtag of Cognitive Virtual and Swiss Cognitive, the global AI hub. And as we love to say, why wait, act now and share for success. Stay healthy and thanks for being with us. Bye.